automated, like data running through my veins. Got you distracted, subconscious overloaded. Careful, don't pull the cord on me. No time to stay around. Keep walking till you get out of my face. Regress, restricted access. I'm just a flight to get up in ya. We love discharging. I'm gonna waste my time with someone slowing me down, 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 down. So high, I'm floating. I'm shining in my prime. Start rolling over, 'cause you can't take my crown. I'll always be 10 feet off the ground. My crown. I'll always be 10 feet off the ground. Can't take my crown. Can't take my crown. Can't take my crown. Rewind my circuits, but you don't get that courage, 'cause you can handle my game. Oh no, my drive's a puzzle. I got you so bumfuzzled, 'cause you can fall into my pain. No time to stay around. Keep walking till you get out of my face. Regress, restricted access. I'm just a flight to get up in ya. We love discharging. I'm gonna waste my time with someone slowing me down, 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 down. So high, I'm floating. I'm shining in my prime. Start rolling over, 'cause you can't take my crown. I'll always be 10 feet off the ground. My crown. I'll always be 10 feet off the ground. Can't take my crown. Can't take my crown. I won't waste my love on your heart. Sorry, 'cause I can't get what I want, and I don't need ya. Discharging, I'm gonna waste my time with someone slowing me down, 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 down. So high, I'm floating. I'm shining in my prime. Start rolling over, 'cause you can't take my crown. I'll always be 10 feet off the ground. My crown. I'll always be 10 feet off the ground. Can't take my crown. Can't take my crown. Can't take my crown.
Hello.
Alright.
Hello.
Hi.
So yes, Eric, we are
Scammers
live on
Live.
Saturday, and that's because
Scammers become Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
we
Yeah.
were supposed to do this last week, and then I don't know, something happened, so that explains it.
I think it was my microphone didn't get it.
Oh right,
That's
yeah,
right, yeah.
Rory had issues with it. He couldn't do it if he didn't have a microphone. So
Yeah.
Hi,
But
Eric
yeah, we're-
and Ghostface.
We're doing this on a
Thank you for
Saturday
the gift of
because
subs also.
yes,
I
and then
work on
he
Wednesday.
subbed himself, the beast.
Hi, Inverness.
Good to see you, Furnace. Trinsic, Ghostface, Walt, Eric.
I need to start getting like
Zippy.
variations of like the
Corrupt.
sounds.
Oh, hi. So who keeps the money?
It goes into a trust fund offshore and gets laundered through
Offshore.
A trust
Laundered
fund
through,
to hire
It gets-
developers for Discord to make the layout consistent and
Yes.
editable. And
like, yo, can you
Don't
guys
get
not
started.
Real cool guy. Hi.
Thank you for the sub.
Hi, real cool guy.
look, Ghostface, just don't tell the IRS, alright? We'll be fine. If the IRS does come, we'll know it was you.
As we say this live on Twitch.
The IRS
Thank you
isn't
again-
watching
Thank you again
Twitch.
for those gifted subs.
Hey, Kaiser.
Hi, Kaiser.
Hi, Kaiser. Thank you for the sub, real cool guy.
Yes, offshore and trust fund.
And he
yes.
gets, and Real Cool Guy gets a founder's badge. Look at that.
Yeah.
Nice.
Ooh.
That makes him a really cool guy.
Yeah.
Mm.
I like how your fight stick is still on the table.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, that's where I keep it. It has to go somewhere.
Oh yeah, I
You guys-
totally
you
don't
guys
have my
want to share
Switch
what you
up there
guys
either.
were up to earlier this evening?
My
before
Switch is
we-
totally not right past my head on the end table back there.
Yeah, so me, Zippy, and Rory were just Intrinsic and Tony were just playing fighting games. As
yeah,
we
yeah,
do.
Something other
Every
than an
Saturday
Xbox
we play.
controller.
Wow,
for that.
Ghostface.
Wait, is there somebody with the actual name the _IRS?
There's probably one called the FBI and the CIA too.
Oh, I'm sure.
Oh my god.
Oh my
got
god, look,
lots
we
of
got a hype
information.
train.
Who has good turnip prices is what Eric wants to know.
You know what? Real quick,
I will
am
deter
not going
to
look.
Morgan
I
or Andrew
promise
because
that's not what I'm
he's
doing
the
right
one that you guys have to
Not
go
not
to.
looking at all.
Andrew had ridiculous prices
Yesterday, I think.
Yesterday. Yeah, yesterday.
totally not. I promise.
Okay, so as you guys know, or most of you should know, and if you don't, you should feel bad, because that means you weren't here for any of the previous ones. But we're currently doing a mini-series that, instead of having guests and interviewing them, we are having
Real cool guy. Thank you so much for gifting 5
what
subs.
would be
and
guests
Idiots.
interview
Idiot.
one of the
Thanks for the
hosts.
gift sub, real cool guy.
Sorry, Sheriff, can you go through
Yeah.
that explanation one more time? And first of all, thank you, Didius, for the raid.
I didn't think once I
There's a lot-
started
there's a lot
explaining,
going on.
a lot of shit was gonna happen.
Oh, thanks, Hi, everybody from Didius. Hi. How
Oh,
are
boy.
you, Didius? What are you
I
playing?
hope you guys are gonna be ready for
Darko.
5 minutes of y'all ready for this.
Should we just mute those?
Nah, it's fine. They'll deal with it.
Eric, I have very bad turnip prices. Not that I was just looking. I
Not
was
at all.
totally
Pimp
not
style.
playing Animal Crossing during our podcast. I would never do that.
Derp Train,
Yes.
nice name.
Derp
I
train.
like
yes.
Derp Train. I like Derp Train better than the name that floats around a lot of channels.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone's
Didius
aware of that,
Haim?
so I won't even
Nice.
bother.
Didius, is that supposed to be you? I thought you don't have blonde hair. Like, I'm not gonna like knock you for having incorrect representations of yourself as an emote, but
I mean,
This
he's
is like a
minor
thing we
age
do.
right
You give
now.
a raid, you get a free
He
art
shaved his
critique,
head.
right? It's like a
He
it's a
shaved-
Trev exclusive.
But he does have
do
blonde
you?
hair.
I thought you had
Yeah.
brown hair.
Yeah.
No, it's blind.
Okay, you need to
Blonde.
keep in mind I'm colorblind, so I'm gonna use that as an excuse.
Oh my goodness gracious. Ridiculous.
And you should feel bad for not having blonde hair and making me feel bad.
Oh my
Also,
goodness.
Didius is gonna be on.
Yes,
This
for all
Wednesday,
those people who
Wednesday.
raided with him, he's gonna be on eventually. We'll announce it sooner, but okay. So before all the stuff happened, we are currently going through a like mini series of having people who would normally be guests come on and interview someone who's an actual core host of the show. We did most of first with Ash, and then it was me and Andrew, and then Ian, Morgan, and now it's Rory and Zippy.
Yay!
I'm
And
Rory.
Tater.
He's Zippy for what it's
Thank
worth.
you very much for gifting a sub, Didius, and thank you very much for forwarding your gift sub from Real Cool.
Yes.
Oh, to Didius. Oh my goodness. I get it. Oh my gosh.
So ordinarily, I am a co-host on this show, but
Yes.
But today you're
I am
Today
a
he
guest.
is going to be in the interview.
Look
seat.
at me. Look at me. I'm the co-host now.
Rory Rory gets to be in the hot seats.
And Rory was saying this last night that he's always been on the other end of interviews as opposed to being the one interviewing. So this is gonna be like a new territory for him.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Other than some long-winded jokes, I'm hoping to basically step back and let Rory talk about himself. So.
But if you guys have any questions,
Yeah, we'll be.
Yeah,
We'll be
I-
taking
I
those
do-
as
I
well.
do take audience questions.
get
Yeah.
all
Yeah,
your
if you
Rory
guys-
questions ready.
If you guys have any questions, or if anything I ask sparks a follow-up question, feel free to ask. This is, at least on my end of this is very freeform. So, but
You just freestyle. It's fine. Eventually, I want to do like a whole cast where like I read out a script and it just rhymes. So then we're gonna have just rhymes. And rhymes.
that is definitely not me, Walt. I will let you know that I also go by Zippy.Spinhead on Reddit. So,
Real cool guy just asked me why my bed isn't made.
All right, you're gonna
That
fit
is
in
a-
very well
on
here
screen.
because
There's a lot
I
of
also
work.
wonder why his bed
that's
isn't
a
made
great
every
starter
time.
question. I feel like we should start with that one.
And I
Are
tell
we
him all the
diving
time.
in?
I'm
Are
like,
we- are
yo,
we diving in?
it looks unprofessional. Yeah, in matter of
I
fact,
vote- I
can you
vote we
fix
make
it right now
Rory-
live on stream so then we can have everyone.
I vote we make Rory answer that question, and then I'll get started with my memes.
Yeah, do you actually want to know why it's not made? Like, I could answer. There's an actual reason why the bed is never made before the streams.
Is it the reason
because-
that Classy gave us?
No, it's because one
okay.
day I was in a
Tony.
rush. I was in a rush to get started for stream, and I was streaming Dishonored, and Tiff came in, and she was like, "Dude, make your bed. What are you at?" And I don't know. From then on, it became such a an inside joke
It's like
that the bed wasn't made. That
it's a
it was
core
like an
part.
important part of my branding.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Look, all I'm saying is I bet Ninja makes his bed every time when he jumps.
Tater
on
has a
an
good
older
question.
meme, sir,
I will
but it
probably
checks
get to
out.
that one later because that will probably integrate with Zippy's in some way.
I think
but
you
it-
might want to
I
actually.
have a few
Tony's
that-
question also.
What was
Nice try,
Tony's
Anna.
question?
Thank you for the host.
I'm gonna keep track of these.
Oh no, that
His
was
question is for Trev, though. Trev has to answer.
Wait, who had a question?
it was Tony.
We've got a couple already, apparently.
Oh, no, I was ignoring Tony's. I know that one.
Why don't we go on to Taters? I think Tater actually has a very good question. Oh,
Sam,
I
thank
see.
you for the follow.
We'll get there. Awesome.
Yeah, Zippy, I think wants to integrate that into his
Yeah, I'll
Oh,
add
yeah.
some there.
order. Yeah.
That's all good, Ice Dragon. We haven't done anything yet.
All right, so tonight we are interviewing Octopus, also known as Rory, one half
That
of the
guy.
Rorigan, but full of talents and personality. I would describe Rory as a Renaissance man with talent in programming, gaming, music, streaming, and being Canadian as fuck.
Yes.
Tonight we delve into the psyche that makes up this individual in the final of the SVH series of self-interviews. To kick things off, many viewers will know that Rory is an avid Star Trek fan. So, who is your favorite captain and why is it Picard?
So, okay, that's a good question.
All right. First of all, can we talk about the structure? This was like the best intro and like well done.
It was exceptional.
Yeah,
It was
very
really
good
exceptional.
intro to Zippy. Very good.
He was like, I'm gonna show up everyone else who's been on this.
So, who is my favorite captain and why is it Picard? Well, I will say first that I think actually, although various people prefer various series of Star Trek, some people like original series, some people like Deep Space Nine. I know almost no one whose answer is best actual captain isn't Picard.
Exactly. Why is it Picard?
So I think it's definitely a majority opinion. I think indisputably he's probably the best decision maker. He also has the most experience at a high administrative level. If you watch episodes like Measure of a Man in season 2, he
One of my
makes
favorite
sure he
episodes.
has good relationships with people higher up with him. Like he's an experienced diplomat, as opposed to other captains, which are maybe more experienced fighters, and or captains like Captain Janeway, who's experienced at trying to get back home and not getting back home. So I think his understanding
As a
of
guy
when
going
not
through
to fight
Voyager
is what
for the
makes him
first
the
time,
best
that
captain.
hits.
I would feel the safest on his ship, is what I'd say.
Okay, I
he's
know
also
we didn't like rehearse this, but I'm not like a. I know most of the characters in Star Trek, but I'm not like a Trekkie. But-
Sure,
right.
yeah.
I don't know if this is on your questionnaire, but if you had to have one controversial opinion that not a lot of other people shared about the captains, who would that be about and why?
Oh, that not a lot of other people shared about
I
captains.
like this follow-up.
I actually think it's that, like, my second place captain is Cisco. And I think most people, like, historically in Star Trek debate over Kirk versus Picard, but I don't even think Kirk makes my second place. I think Ben Sisko, who's the captain on Deep Space Nine, would be my second place pick.
Kirk
me see
is
this
very
one.
much a product of
Dang
his time, I feel like.
Okay, here we go.
Absolutely, yeah.
I just want to see what Scratch says.
So if you guys didn't catch from that intro, there's a lot of different aspects that make up Rory. So I kind of wanted to start by getting a little bit of background on all of those various aspects. So I'm going to start out with the kind of generic stuff that you guys have heard on SPH before, which is, how did you get into gaming? What was like your earliest video game memories, and how did you evolve from there into the games you play today?
Oh, sure. So there are two separate avenues for how I got into gaming, one for PC and one for console. The PC one is very intuitive. My cousin Kevin, I'm the youngest of my cousins by quite a distance, and my cousin Kevin was a PC gamer. He knew how to build PCs, and he introduced me to a lot of classic PC games, things like Half-Life, Unreal Tournament, stuff like that, and Counter-Strike when that came out. And so that was like my avenue there. I spent a lot of time. They like watched over me a lot because when I was a baby, my mother was still doing her master's degree. So, someone needed to look out for me and make sure I didn't, eat all the fucking crayons or whatever I wanted to do. So my cousins watched out for me. I did whatever they did. So my cousin Kevin was a PC gamer, and I lived in a basement apartment, and one of my other cousins, he lived upstairs, and he had a PlayStation 1, and he had a demo disc, and that demo disc had the Japanese demo for Metal Gear Solid on it. And that was also one of my earliest gaming memories. So that's how I headed down the PlayStation direction and in the PC direction. And I still remember everything about that demo because I played it so many times over, including the voice of Snake, who, even after years of playing the English versions, when I think of the voice of Snake, I still think of him, the actual Japanese voice actor.
Which is funny because for a lot of people, there was a huge backlash when they didn't bring David Hayter back.
Yes, there was.
Metal Gear Solid 5, I believe, was the one where he was.
Oh man, that's what Eric's saying.
That's true.
Right
They also
now.
tried to replace him in 3, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
Eric is outraged. He said no, David Hayter.
By
Coming
the way,
from a man who is tattooed.
dropping questions in the chat where I'm saving them so we can circle back around to them. So
Yeah,
worry.
so don't feel like
No, he's
we
very
ignored
organized.
them. We
We're
have them.
saving all of it. We're coming back for you guys. Don't worry.
All right, so that's how you got started on video games. But how did that like evolve? Like obviously I can see the beginnings of your like for stealth games in that.
Yes.
But and shooters with like Unreal and all that, and also like your preference for older school shooters than a lot of the new school
Absolutely.
stuff.
Yeah.
But where did that kind of like evolve?
Oh, how did it
you,
grow
like,
into like more where I am now?
exactly.
Okay, yeah, sure. Well, I followed PlayStation, and PlayStation had Metal Gear Solid games, right? So that was like a no-brainer for me because I wasn't going to buy a console if it didn't have a Metal Gear Solid game on it. That would be absurd
Right,
to me
yeah.
at the time. I think I've always been a PC gamer in my heart. Like I've just always, I guess, just preferred I know a lot of people when I was a kid, they liked to play on the big TV and stuff like that. But, I really liked just sitting in front of a small monitor, and putting on my headphones. And, you felt a little more radio silent to the world. And that immersion is something I still sort of seek out today. I think because I was buying PlayStations, you don't just play Metal Gear Solid. You want to buy a couple other games as well if you can.
Right. Yeah.
If you could try to justify your purchase a little more than I bought this, $100 some odd dollar console for one game.
Yeah, for one.
Or multiple hundreds of dollars. And I
I've
found.
done that.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure we all have. And there was a launch title for the PS3. It was Resistance: Fall of Man, which most people played who had PS3s. They played the campaigns and sort of thought nothing of it. But it had a ranked multiplayer ladder with actual dedicated servers and basically flawless netcode. And at the time, that was unbelievable, right? Because a lot of the competitors, if you played like Modern Warfare, which was out at a similar time, it took Call of Duty many iterations to get dedicated servers.
Yes. Yeah.
Like, I don't even know when
Yeah.
they implemented them. I think I actually stopped playing them before they did.
I
I think it was
so as
fairly
well, yeah.
recent.
Yeah, and so to
And
me,
even then, it still feels like you're just doing peer to peer because they're shit. Let's be honest.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, and I always loved shooters, right? Like I loved Unreal Tournament a lot. I loved Counter Strike. I loved Battlefield on the PC as well. And I had thought at the time that this would be a game that I would really sink my teeth into and just be a shooter player,
Right. Yeah.
from then until eternity. But eventually that game ran out of steam, and it was around that time I started playing Elder Scrolls games, and I absolutely fell in love with the universe. And I thought maybe I'm an RPG guy, and then I started playing other RPGs. Realized I'm not at all. I don't generally like RPGs. I happen to like the universe of the Elder Scrolls, and there's a couple other RPGs, but
I've found that I'm getting pickier and pickier with my RPGs as time goes on, and like even some of the ones I could play as a kid, I can't play anymore. I don't.
well, they take so much time, right?
I think you
it's a
have
lot
to
of
be
time.
picky, because like if you're not, then you're gonna have all these like unfinished games, and you're just gonna be like,
That happens to me
all of them?
regardless. But
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think simultaneously I was falling out of love with shooters as a genre because I didn't like the direction they were going in. The idea of Call of Duty having these kill streaks and stuff like that. I never liked the idea of rewarding a player who has an advantage. I think if you get an advantage in a shooter, it should be from good map knowledge and strong fundamentals.
From your skill or your time invested.
Yeah, exactly. Every fight should be a fight, right? There should never be a system in a shooter, in my opinion, where something else gets the kill for you, other than you.
Yeah. Makes
And
sense.
then, and I guess it just sort of continued. I always loved film more than games when I was growing up. So that was the bulk of my time. So I always had a few games going kind of on the side that I would play a lot of. But honestly, it maintained that way more or less, me just trying different things and mostly focusing on what I liked until I started streaming, so until a year ago.
Gotcha. Well, that brings me to the next section of how did your journey start in this aspect of your life, which was streaming. And I know,
sure.
A good portion of people probably have heard this story from you before, but go ahead.
Ice Dragon, thank you for the sub. Well, I guess, do you want me to start at radio, or do you want me to start at streaming, like when streaming actually started?
No, radio's perfect. The more we know, the better, right?
Oh, okay, sure,
The
yeah.
deep dive.
Always
Okay,
start
wait.
Deep dive on Rory.
If we really want to get into the radio story, we have to go back a ways to when I was a really small child. I'm from a small-ish place. I'm from an island, and islands are known to be kind of insular. We didn't have a lot of radio stations on the island, so campus radio, the university campus radio, was listened to by like a bunch of people. It was popular. It wasn't just something that existed in the ecosystem of the university. And so when I was a kid, I would hear the campus radio on the radio, and I'd be like, wow, I got to do that when I get to university. But like most of my childhood dreams, I forgot about it because I was busy doing other things, right? I also forgot about my dream to become a professional basketball player. Right?
Yeah.
The difference is I never really did end up fulfilling the basketball part. When I was 18, I was in a class, like a summer university class. It was grammar and syntax, and
Okay.
I was like sitting down, and one of the guys in my class sat down next to me, and we started talking about whatever, and so we somehow got on radio because he was a campus radio host, and he mentioned he was like, my host is out of town this Wednesday for the morning show. Do you want to come in and host with me? And I
Right.
said, yeah, sure. Figuring, what's the worst that could happen? And it ended up being a blast. I started hosting my own show, and I did that for 5 or 6 years. And then I had to stop because of school, because I'd started my master's degree, and, I didn't have much time. But I missed it, and I missed it for about a year until I found Twitch, because my friend Tiff was a Twitch streamer. I met her at university. Her name's Talara on here, if anybody wants to do like a thing for her. And what it was is we'd been Steam friends, and I saw on her Steam page, because I check up on my Steam friends from time to time, see what they're playing, because there was a link
Right.
to her Twitch channel, a website I did not use. So I was like, I'll go see what that's all about. And I found the channel, watched a couple streams, then subbed immediately, then played on stream the next day. and then like I knew I was hooked, and I hung out there for a while, and that's how that was my introduction.
I'd like to make a point that she didn't know it was you originally, right?
Yeah, that's right. Because I didn't want to bog down chat with like my life story, you know, like, hey,
Right.
it's Rory. You remember Rory from the, you know, I look like this. Like, I didn't want to like, so like, I just like messaged her on Facebook one day after hanging out a few streams. I was like, look, just so you know, like that is me.
That's me. Yeah.
And
That's funny.
I was Rory from then on for everybody. I was never really Octopus again for most people. So I guess that was my start to streaming. Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool though. All right, so now we get into the weird journeys that people may not know just from watching your stream.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they should know from watching your stream, but what got you into computers and, you know, IT and AI and, you know, down the college path that you're currently on, right? Like,
Oh, sure.
what put you on that path, or you know, where did the origins of that journey come from, I guess?
Sure. Well, I was always interested in computer literacy. I think being a PC gamer, you have no choice but to be interested in some degree of computer literacy. But programming, I discovered later than a lot of people I know. I discovered programming when I was 19. I was a psychology major, and I didn't like doing my labs using the software they had in the computer lab. And I happened to be taking an intro to programming course. Just I thought it would be fun. And so it was in Python, and so I wrote Python scripts to do my labs for me because I don't like doing them because they're terrible. And that so there was no translation of the theory into the usefulness of programming for me. It was immediate, right? I was like, I have a task I need done, and programming is the best way to accomplish it. So after I finished, I ended up majoring in math and finishing my undergraduate degree in math. And I was like,
Gotcha.
you know, few seconds away from, you know, abandoning that entirely and becoming a professional film critic, when I decided that it might be a good idea to not do that and to try something else. And I was wasting a lot of time watching Netflix around that time, and I was like, Netflix works well, why don't the other streaming services work well? I want to know. And so I went back to do computer science so I could figure it out. Genuinely, like that was the main motivation. I was like, I'll figure it out, and then I'll go work for one of these places.
That's such a strange motivation. Mine's completely different. I kind of just knew, like, that. Hey, that's the microphone. Could you maybe not?
Did you know before university that's what you wanted to do?
Oh yeah, 100%. I figured that out in high school. Sometime in middle school, the dream of being an astronaut died when I realized, you know, vision is kind of a requirement for that. And
sure, yeah.
You know, crushed my hopes and dreams, and then
So
you know,
is that why you were
then
Zippy
I
DOS
also-
manhead and not Zippy DOS astronaut?
But yeah, no, I knew like middle school, high school, somewhere in that area. It was like I want to do computers. So.
Well, I would say at the very least, you got closer to your dream of becoming an astronaut than I did to mine of becoming an NBA basketball player.
I don't know about that.
I think the height, my height impairment was equal to your vision impairment, probably, in keeping us from our dreams.
Did you ever unlock that Netflix mystery?
No, I never did. I got very distracted as soon as I went into computer science.
I can actually tell you that one if you're still curious.
Yeah, actually do it. Yeah, why not? Let's learn something. Yeah.
So Netflix basically has their own CDN in that there's they have like mini clusters of servers that they have dotted throughout the globe, right? So they have a couple of like main data centers where they keep everything. And then when someone in a region watches something, it downloads it from that main
hub
data center. Sorry, yeah. Data center, and puts it on one of those hubs that's closer to you. That's the same way that a CDN works. Anytime you click on a photo on Facebook and it says .cdn.facebook, you know, that is the same thing. It's the same concept. It's you have a central repository that has all of the data, and then you have a bunch of smaller repositories that grab data when they need it. What that does is that you have basically geographic bits of servers that are closer to you, and they have data that is commonly pulled in your region. So,
yeah, that makes sense.
You know, example, I'm in Texas. I think there's a server in Dallas and there's a server in Houston, right, for Netflix. Those servers are really those mini hubs, and on either the Houston or the Dallas one, you probably have most of the Netflix collection, just because of, you know, at least all the American, or in English, I should say, is probably all stored on those little hubs, but they're just grabbing bits and pieces of what they're missing from like a central repository. Probably, my guess would be West Coast, Seattle, most likely. So,
sure.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's how that all works.
That does make sense. Okay, yeah.
CDN networks. So, sorry, that's my job. This is a little bit of a reverse interview today.
Zippy
Ferguson,
solved
by
the
the way, Lon.
mystery. Zippy solved the mystery for Rory.
Yeah, thank you. What I wish I had known Zippy at the time. I could
Now
have
you
messaged
can
him.
cross
I
that
thought,
off as,
degree.
Less
like, well-
to do before dying. It's like, all right, you don't have to solve that mystery.
yeah.
But yeah, a lot of things use that kind of stuff. Any photo sharing service, YouTube, all that kind of stuff. They use a CDN. Most of them use a third-party CDN where they basically pay a company to handle all that hardware and stuff.
Sure, yeah.
Netflix is one of the few that has their own, which is also why it's a little bit faster than most other streaming services.
Okay, yeah, that does make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. So sorry, a little bit of a derail there, but
No, not at all.
Yeah,
This is Mark's. It's educational for a reason.
Yes. If we don't learn at least one thing, it's a phase. It's a fail.
All right, so let's see. We covered video games. We covered streaming. We covered programming. This is just an overview. I have questions for each of these, by the way.
Yeah,
We'll
no
get
worries,
to them,
yeah.
But I wanted to get like the origins of each of them at least.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
So the next two, if you want to combine these, it's cool. But I figured you probably want to split them out. But music, because I know you both play guitar, and I don't know whether you play any other instruments or not. But I know you compose music, and I know that you enjoy listening to music as well. So
That's
I was
right,
curious, like what set you down, you know, the path to get started learning guitar, and then what got you to the point where you're like, I want to write my own stuff, like.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. No, that's a great question, actually. Yeah. So I started. A friend of mine had an acoustic guitar when I was in the 5th grade, and I just thought it looked cool. Like, honestly, like it was like, I think it's a lot of reason a lot of people want to start playing guitar, and like when you look online on what guitar songs to learn, it points you in the direction of the stuff everybody wants to learn. It points you in the direction of Zeppelin, right? Like, because classic rock, so many years, so many decades after its origin, was still inspiring young guitar players. So
Yeah, of course.
it was actually guitar, wanting to play a guitar, that got me into the music that made me want to practice guitar more, which was funny. So it was the guitar that attracted me first before the actual music did.
That's funny, yeah. It's like the opposite of
Yeah, I feel like that's the reverse of most people. I feel like most people are attracted to the music, then go pick up the instrument, and then they're like, this is not how I thought it was going to be.
So when I was in the 6th grade, I got an electric guitar, and I really enjoyed practicing it, and it was a nice break from what I was doing. I know, Zippy, you know a bit about my educational background, but I went to a very academically cutthroat private school, and it was like, I remember, I don't think in the 6th grade, I don't think there was a night in the week that I put the books away before 9, which is too much work for a 6th grader to be doing.
100%.
Especially
And so you need a break from that, right? Like, you need, just psychologically, I think you need something to take your mind off of it. And mine was guitar. That was what like did it for me. And writing, and I was writing badly as soon as I started playing. There was no wait period. I know a lot of people who, you know, they practice and they get their technique up and then they started writing, but I don't know, stuff sounded cool to me on the guitar that I was doing, so I started putting it together. And so I've always been writing, and as a result, my writing has this huge gap in quality over the years. Like, that was in the 6th grade. I'm 27 now, so quite a number of years of composing, and it's just, you know, I'm sure if I had some of my old music, I would cringe just reading it, let alone having to play it. But I think that's actually a really good measure of how your progress is going with the guitar, is like, what kind of stuff are you actually composing, rather than just how fast am I playing this scale on this metronome, which is important, but it's not as
Gotcha.
fun a landmark to look at, I think.
Yeah, Quasar's yowling for my attention. This microphone doesn't pick that up nearly as much as the headset mic, which is funny.
Kind of related from Real Cool Guy. Do you have a favorite chord? And if so, what is it?
Do not say bar chord. If you say bar
That's a
chord, I'm
good
disconnecting.
question. Do I have a favorite chord? I think I do, but I need to think about what it is.
What comes
Can I do a category? Can I just say any major 7 chord is my favorite chord?
Oh, yeah.
So like, I don't know. It's just like major 7 chords and alternate chord voicings are a really great way to just open up new avenues for yourself on the guitar. And the major 7 chord was the first chord I learned that wasn't like a standard like open chord voicing or bar chord voicing or
Do
something.
you remember what song it was that taught you a major 7 chord?
It wasn't a song. It was a 4-chord sequence
just,
actually.
just like a
My
like a
guess
progression.
would have been.
Yeah, it was like an
Wonderwall.
intro to jazz chords kind of thing. I had a couple of guitar teachers, though I didn't really stick with lessons much, and one of them said, okay, we're going to do jazz today. Here, you need these 4 new chord voicings that you've never used before.
Oh, so you
And-
weren't like self-taught? You were like you actually went and.
I alternated. I was self-taught, then I went to an instructor, and then self-taught, and then an instructor, and then I've been self-taught for the last, the last time I had an instructor was in the 11th grade.
Do you think you learned more being self-taught or more from an instructor?
I think you learn more from an instructor. For me, I'm not saying it's not necessarily a better way to learn for everybody, but being self-taught, the things you learn, sometimes I think it's good to have rigor. I feel the same way about programming. Like, I think some self-taught programmers can develop bad habits, and I think it's the same thing with self-taught guitar players. Like, if you don't have someone to tell you, you might want to try alternate picking, then, you're probably just going to down pick for the rest of your, guitar playing days until someone tells you to do something different. So I think it's good to have a consultant when you're playing, or even if it's a more advanced guitar player, just be like, hey, like, what are you playing right now? And I also think if you're never playing with more advanced musicians, you're never gonna. Victor Wooten says that. He's like, think about if when you were learning a language, you only spoke it with people who were equivalently skilled as you, right? Like,
That's
you'd
kinda like
probably
the-
never be able to speak a sentence, right? Like,
Kind of like the if you're the smartest guy in the room, like you're in the wrong room thing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's totally that philosophy. Like, you want to be playing with people who are better players than you, because then that's the only way you're ever going to get to be a better player.
Yeah. So then I had one more for you, which was film. Because we know you're quite the film buff. So when did that start, or was there like a particular movie or whatnot that like blew your socks off and you're like, man, this cinema thing, I need to keep an eye on it for the rest of my life. Like,
So
And
when I was a
one
kid,
second,
the first
have
thing I
a
definitely
addition to that. Do you remember what the first
yeah.
movie was that made you feel that way?
Yes, I don't. So I know it was a Star Trek movie. I couldn't tell you which one in hindsight because they were all. I had access to all of them. But like Star Trek was like an instantaneous thing for me. I do not remember a time when I didn't watch Star Trek. So that was pretty instantaneous. My cousin, the PC gamer, he had a big shelf of DVDs, and like I say, I spent a lot of time as a kid over at his place. And so I would just go through the DVDs, right? And so he had Minority Report. I must have watched Minority Report 15 times at least.
I've seen that movie quite a few times.
Yeah.
The
It's a great sci-fi film.
it really is, yeah. And he had LA Confidential. I probably shouldn't have been watching that, but I was. And he had Evil Dead 2. And that was like that blew Evil Dead 2 for like a 7-year-old me was like the coolest movie ever, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah, of course.
And those are the 3 that I remember being on the shelf. And I mean, he had other stuff too, like Mallrats and
Oh God, Mallrats.
just sort of just like random stuff like that was always on the shelf. And most importantly, I mean, I think I slightly expanding, I guess, on your question, if you would let me answer for film and TV, he had season 2 of Buffy. on the shelf.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah. You do end up mentioning Buffy.
Is that also where you
so
started
that
with
makes sense.
Angel, or did you start Angel? You're on. Okay.
I started it there. He had season 2 of Buffy. He had season 1 of Angel. That was what was sitting there, and that was like that blew my mind. That like changed my perception of what TV was even supposed to be.
Don't hate me, but I have yet to watch Buffy.
I mean, Angel's better. Yeah, watch that.
This is what people tell me.
Is it really? I've watched a lot of Buffy, but I haven't.
So for what people tell me when I tell them I haven't watched either, and Rory can maybe back this up or not, but they tell me watch Buffy if you want a campy and funny show, and then watch Angel if you want that same universe but done as like a serious serialized show.
Angsty.
Yeah, Angel is
angsty. That yes, okay.
in the words of one of my friend, Angel is broke Batman. Like he's
broke Batman.
That's like kind of the vibe you get from it. But I mean, I think more importantly than any of that is the fact that the last season of Buffy is unwatchable garbage, and that like, well, you guys I'm sure are familiar. You've always all had a show that you watched. And you were like, and then it dipped at the end, and it made you real sad. Like
and Dexter, yes.
I've had a few of those.
Oh yeah.
How I Met Your Mother.
Oh
yeah. Whoa.
Dexter's the one I feel the most, but
that one's still too soon, Morgan. That's too soon.
Right.
All right, there's like 7 seasons of hype, and then they just oh.
Yeah, that was a rough one. And like,
I know that was like a decade ago, but
some people like Buffy better, and I'm okay with that.
It was a long time ago.
Yeah,
that really was. Actually,
I was in college for How I Met Your Mother. So
I finished that when I was a senior.
Oh damn!
That was a decade ago.
Yeah, but like consistency is worth something on TV. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like How I Met Your Mother is still so funny, but like it was a long time ago now, like maybe a good few months ago. But I was downstairs and the TV was just on, and like How I Met Your Mother was on, and I can remember sitting and being like, haha, I remember this episode, it's funny. And then at one point I just went, oh, sucks though.
Get the realization is like, it's not this good forever.
Yeah. I really like Ice Dragon's question, so even though I was going to move on to a different section, I'm going to pull that one because it's really good. TV shows you wish would have another season, why did you also choose Firefly?
So this is like, so Firefly is like indisputably the best answer to this question. Like it's the correct answer.
Ash would be proud.
Objectively the correct.
But
like
if it wasn't that, what would be your next choice?
So
that's
this is you got to bear with me for this answer because everybody's gonna hate it. But just for the sake of making the ending not so rushed and for maybe being able to flesh out an actual story, Game of Thrones, not like a follow-up to this last season, but like if we could split this last season into 2 seasons and get someone else to write it entirely, then like
100%
that. If there's a show that deserved more time to tell its story, it's Game of Thrones.
100% that.
Yeah.
Hey,
remember how
she went crazy because bells, and I'm like, remember when Anakin went crazy because Tusken Raiders murdered his mother, and then
did
the
Zippy
Jedi
cut out or
Council
did
was
I
trying to
cut
push
out?
him away.
No, he went crazy because of sand. Everyone knows that.
Oh yeah, it was coarse and rough, and it got everywhere.
I still have Zippy.
Everything's frozen. Hang on.
Oh.
We still hear you. And
I'm
see
back.
you.
I'm back. Okay.
Okay.
I see
It's
you.
just the island internet. It's just the island.
Yeah, the island's having a tough go.
I was making the joke about bells made her crazy versus Anakin. It's like, oh well, Tusken Raiders tortured his mother to death, and then the Jedi Council was trying to move him away from his wife, and his wife was pulling away from him, and like there's 8,000 things that are all like cascading on each other for Anakin. And Daenerys, it's like she heard bells,
and she was like,
yeah.
Well, I would have been less angry about it because there were a lot of people that I know that were like, she was my favorite character. Why'd they make her into a villain? I was so mad about that. And honestly,
I called that season 1, to be honest.
But I can get behind a once good character becoming a villain character if they can just. I mean, because I'm a writer, so if they can
Harvey
just.
Dent said.
Yeah, if they can just. Actually make it work because they absolutely could have made it work with her kind of slowly descending into madness instead of just her being normal and then bells and then she killed 1 million people.
Well, that's what makes it so disappointing to me, is because like if you go back and watch Game of Thrones, which I know is a sore subject for some people, but if you go back and watch Game of Thrones, especially in the earlier seasons, there is a hell of a ton of foreshadowing of her being not quite right. Like,
Yes.
an absolute crap ton of it. But these are like
think when she
these are
started
like
killing
Brad
people.
Pitt showing up for a single frame in Fight Club foreshadowing, like very subtle.
We're not
kind of
supposed
hard
to
to
talk about Fight
catch.
Club.
Kind of hard to catch if you're not paying attention, and you a lot of times in the moment, at least on your first watch through, you're like, no, that's totally justified. Like, yeah, she might be overreacting a little bit, but it's totally justified. She's freeing slaves. Or no, she's totally justified. Her brother was trying to, pawn her off to a barbarian king. Like, like there's moments where you're like, she killed her brother. I mean, like, she didn't actually pour the molten gold over his head, but she
She
killed
gave
her brother,
the-
let's
the
be
okay.
honest.
She gave the okay.
Yeah, so
I
Well,
think
that's
what
the,
you're saying
like
is,
that's the very first moment
Yeah.
where I was like,
over time.
not quite right there.
They seem
Foreshadowed but
justified.
rushed is what I'd say about that
Yeah.
character.
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
Well,
Not to
Exactly.
mention-
Like there's a
It does-
bunch
it
of
didn't
that
feel
really good
earned.
foreshadowing,
Yeah.
and then they don't deliver on it in the actual turn.
Yeah.
So I
Not to
just-
mention, I feel like they definitely were just rushing things, and we're not. I'm going to be honest. I don't think that they were really putting their heart into it by the end.
Oh
Because
no, they weren't.
no,
especially
they already
at the
knew it
end.
was going to print money.
Yeah.
They didn't care.
in the last episode, I can remember watching it because my mom and my brother and I were huge fans of it. We always watched it every single Sunday together. And then I'd get into Melly's Discord and we'd start talking about the spoilers.
Oh, I remember. I avoided that
Yeah,
section
because we had a
to-
Game of Thrones spoiler section.
We do it every week. And I can remember like talking about when Drogon was the last one, right? It was Drogon, right?
The Last Dragon.
For
Last dragon.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
last.
Yeah.
oh yeah.
So when Drogon melted the Iron Throne, like my mom and I, and like my brother, we were like, "Oh, that is so cool! That's like really cool." What's the word? I mean, I don't think it's symbolism, but
I was
Yeah,
gonna
like
say
he,
symbolism,
like Dragon
but I guess-
understands in its grief and all that kind of stuff, right?
he
Like,
sees that that what killed his mother was actually like how everybody was fighting over just to sit in this
Yeah,
throne.
yep.
Like nobody's gonna sit in it ever again, and then he took her and he left. And I just kind of want to say I delegate to not listen to the directors because then they completely ruined that by saying in a statement that the dragon just wanted to fire off a fireball. He's not actually that intelligent, and he just happened to hit the Iron Throne. And I was like, "Are you joking?"
I
Are you
remember
joking?
this, and it legitimately pissed me off for much of the
could've
same
just-
reasons. Like, let the audience interpret that. There's
Exactly.
no reason
They could have just capitalized on that too. By the way, they could have just been like, yeah. That's it. That's exactly what we were thinking. You guys got it, but then they didn't, and they kind of ruined it even more. So I don't know.
What's funny is like
Yikes.
if you read past the lines of what they said was, we wanted an excuse for a special effects shot of a fireball.
Yes.
Yeah,
if you
literally.
break down
Precisely.
what they said, that's what they really
That
Yeah,
was
they
what they
underlined
worked the
meaning.
scene around. Was
Yeah.
let's have this.
And they would have had
special
more
effect.
time too.
and
HBO
not-
said they could
not
have as much
anything
time
else.
as they wanted to tell that story.
Yeah. No, it's
They
And
didn't
they forced
want
it out. They were just like,
Yeah, literally.
If I could interject, I have a question for Rory, kind of based
Fire
on
away.
what we were just doing. So, just in terms of like film and TV, so there's a journey that you take, I think, when you're enjoying film and television just as a consumer, and then when you start critiquing films as a discipline. Like, how did you get from point A to point B in that journey?
Oh,
Like,
that's
where-
a
I like
good
this. I like this.
question. It's also how I met Tiff, actually. So
Ooh, twofer.
you accidentally asked that as well, which is cool. When you're in radio, you have a relationship of some kind with the student newspaper. Usually, there's a lot of crossover. A lot of the student radio hosts are also writers for the student newspaper. Shockingly, at university radio, by the way, there are also a lot of like non-student radio hosts who just like
It's
often
the
like sort of
journalism
bizarre
aspect.
old men who come in to host, hours long shows with mass amounts of talking, and just because they can't get on any other radio
That's
station.
not where I thought that was going. But all right.
So, but the ones who are your age are usually writers for the student paper. So I'd heard about the student paper, and I went into like a meeting, like an intro meeting, where they sort of like just have new people and they can ask questions and stuff. And
Right.
so they were like, "Oh yeah, you can write for whatever section. Just here are our section editors. Approach whoever." And I approached the sports guy, and he didn't want me. because I wanted to do MMA coverage, and I was like, oh, well, they've got an art guy here. I wonder if that includes film, basically, and it did.
Right.
I said, can I write a film review? He said, yeah, but we might not print it. And I said, okay. I guess
riveting start. Yeah.
I guess he figured, like, who knows what this is going to be, right? Like, this could be a garbage film review, and in which case we're not going to print it. For what it's worth, they also printed the garbage film review.
Then we look like.
And I wrote that night I went to go see Riddick, the 2013 Riddick film. Which I had loved the Riddick universe. I thought it was really cool.
The first one's
which
my
one is
favorite
that?
still,
'Cause I know there's
by
Pitch
far.
Black, and then there's
Pitch Black, there's Chronicles, and there's Riddick in terms of the live action ones. But there's also an animated one. And there's 2 games.
Yep, the animated one comes between Pitch Dark and Chronicles. If I
It's
remember
Pitch
correctly.
Black, I think.
yeah.
Oh, sorry, Pitch Black. Yeah.
No worries. I might have said
Pitch Black is
Pitch
my
Dark.
favorite of the. Is
Before
the
Yeah,
favorite of the
his
whole
family
franchise,
days
so.
and driving cars. He was doing
Yeah, exactly, yeah. And just like, I guess I've always enjoyed essay writing, and I think that's how I viewed film criticism. Unlike most people, I think, who view it as like, here's my opinion on a film. I was like, here's an opportunity for me to try to see what's actually happening under the film, like, and write it down. Like, is there anything unique I can get out of this that maybe someone else didn't notice? That's how I guess started. Yeah.
Based on that answer, I'm just going to skip straight to the film questions.
No, far away.
Because we're kind of going down that route.
Yeah,
What based on that, and then your answer of like how you got into film, I'm assuming I kind of know the answer to this, but like, what draws you to film? Is it the stories? Is it the spectacle? Is it the cinematography? Is it special effects? If you had to pick like one aspect of film, what is it that draws you to film? Or if you can't pick an aspect, like, what is it more like the gestalt? The feeling of the whole of all of those things.
So it's the composition. Are these people making the same movie, or is the writer trying to make a movie the director doesn't want him to make?
Okay.
What about the score? Is this guy doing a score that's good for this dramatic film?
Meshing and
It's
cogging
the
together.
symphony of
Gotcha.
everything working.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and
Okay, gotcha.
usually
Like
when
the
I was
assembly
critical
line,
of
it's like,
something,
if this
it's
doesn't
because
work,
of something.
then because this part failed and like the other parts.
Yeah,
obviously
exactly.
went.
Yeah. It's just like a bass player being out of time. You're like, oh, what? He does not account. Like, that's what went wrong here. So I'd say that's what really draws me to film as an art form, because there's so many people who work on. People don't realize how much producers do either.
Yeah.
Like,
a lot of people
can be
think like,
very
the
hands-on.
producer just shows up with a paycheck. Like, no,
No,
Some
usually
of them
not.
just show up with a paycheck, but most of them
Good ones will
have
actually
something
be
to do with
hands-on
the
and
movie.
stuff,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and maybe you'll get an instance where a director and an actor work really well together. There's a lot of director-actor combos, like Spike Lee, and Denzel, right? They've done 7 movies together, and it's
Quentin
like
Tarantino and like everybody he
and
works
every
with.
Tarantino actor, yeah.
Ron and Tom Hanks.
And yeah, exactly. And so and oftentimes, producers are the people with the connections to make those introductions and to put those power duos together of filmmaking.
Yeah, and then keep putting them together too, because even if the actor and the director love working with each other, right, and they happen to be a smash hit at the box office together as well, there still has to be somebody that puts them together again for follow-up movies, regardless of whether they're like actually a follow-up movie or just another movie with this combo.
Exactly. I should mention as well. Sorry, I forgot to actually answer this part of Melly's question, but Tiff wrote sports articles for that paper. That was how we met, actually. I forgot about that entirely. And so that was actually where I first met Tiff. So I guess that's.
I kind of have a question for your radio stint.
Sure.
I don't know if I told you this or if you knew this about me, but back in the day I used to do like broadcast journalism, which is kind of like I don't know, it's kind of like radio, but like more like news stuff and.
Oh sure, okay, yeah.
You were strictly like voice stuff, right? On like a talk show. You never did anything like what we're doing now. Would this be the first time you did something that was like video or like live or?
No, because one of my shows was also broadcast on YouTube. Like, not live, but it was put on YouTube later, and we had cameras in the room.
Oh.
So this would be my second time actually doing, like, I suppose what you could call a podcast. But, like, you know, we still had to abide by radio standards because it was on the radio.
Right.
So you had to, you know, not curse and stuff like that. And it being iffy on the rules is actually how that ended up. That was probably one of the big impetuses in actually stopping my radio career. Not because I was iffy on the rules, but one of my co-hosts was.
Oh,
what is
that
that sounds like a story.
That was an interesting incident. Basically, we had always stayed within the guidelines, and one of our co-hosts decided to make I would hesitate to call it a sexual joke, but I mean, that was what it was referred to as by the program director, who ended up sending me a rather upset email about it. So I'll call it a sexual joke. Basically, I mentioned it to my co-host, and his response was, well, we probably shouldn't be on the radio then, because I don't like having someone restrict what I'm saying. And I would be lying if I said I liked that answer at the time. I was expecting to just sort of have a, like, oh, okay, I'll dial it back kind of thing, as opposed to no, we shouldn't be on the radio anymore if we have some boss that's restricting us.
Almost
and
like there's like
Okay.
guidelines for like
That-
the CC and like.
like I won't say I've never made a mistake on stream, because I certainly have, but
Oh, I think we
mistakes
all have, right?
on the radio are the reason I don't make mistakes again. Like, for the most part, like, the reason I don't have people on stream if I'm not going to be sure about what they're saying is due to instances like that, where I've been on the radio with wildcard hosts before, and it's highly stressful, I would say, you know,
The
when
good
someone
takeaway
could cost
is
you a
that
position.
You learn from your mistakes, though, because I know some people who like even other hosts that like will have someone in and then like they'll do something bad and then like they'll have pretty much the same person in again. It's like, did you not learn that? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, true. Yeah.
So the another question I had for film was, what's your favorite, like, off the beaten track film, if that makes sense? So it can be a B movie that nobody's heard of. It could be a foreign film, you know, or whatever.
be a
But
guilty
basically,
pleasure film that you like watch.
Yeah.
And, like everyone thinks it's trash or something.
yeah, no, or what Trev said. I really like that idea too. But like, basically, my point is I'm trying to get away from the movies that everybody sees because everybody sees the commercials for. What's your favorite movie that someone might not know of, or like Trev says, has a bad rap, but you adore for X or Y reason?
Yeah, so probably without a doubt, it's a Korean film, which I know Melly's seen, called Burning, which
It's
came out
like
in
Train to
2018.
Busan.
So good.
It's a mystery film, and there are so few of those mystery films, and I won't spoil anything because it's good to go in blind, but it's not a mystery film that's like an M. Night Shyamalan style thing where it's just based on some big twist or some gimmick. It's like, it's an actual mystery that like it has an actual slow boil, and it doesn't have some like comically large, you know, big mind-bending twist at the end. It's just, you know, it's like an old mystery story, like an old Conan Doyle mystery story almost.
Right. Yeah.
Or like the very modern successor to that. So I would say Burning is probably my favorite of those films.
I think I've actually heard of it before, but I know I haven't personally seen it. But the fact that I've heard of it as a foreign film is like, me as like not a film buff at all is like, that's okay. Yeah, it must be good kind of thing. So I'll have to check that out
exactly.
at some point. All right, let's see what it has to. Oh, well, I guess the follow-up, I kind of want to know the answer to Trev's corollary to that question, though. What's your favorite, like, guilty pleasure movie that most people think is trash?
I can't wait to hear this answer.
It's not what everyone's hoping it's gonna be.
Is it Prometheus?
because I know you. What's my favorite? Oh yeah, that I think like that most people think is trash, but I think is like the coolest thing ever. You know what? Actually, a film that was really panned by critics, but I adored was 2004's Van Helsing, with Hugh Jackman and Kate Beckinsale.
I've actually seen that one. Yeah.
I think
it's
everyone here actually also enjoyed that movie, so I think we're part of that.
Yeah.
I
unpopular
think we're part of the minority. Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't call it a groundbreaking masterpiece or anything, but there's nothing wrong with it either. Like,
Yeah, like
It is potentially the best paced film that I've watched of that genre. I think it's actually paced flawlessly. Like all the plot lines are spread out just enough. There's a build up, but it's not filler. And the acting, everybody's acting in the same corny action movie. You know what I mean? The Dracula's just over the top enough to be in this movie, and but not
Hugh
quite over the
Jackman
top enough to
is
be.
just Hugh Jackman enough to be.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
That makes sense. Like what you said, like you appreciate all the aspects of a film working together, and that's a film in which that's happening. It's like all the same level of acting, directing.
no
exactly.
one's like
Oh.
outshining someone else because like there's someone's trying to be too over the top
it's a
or
cohesive vision.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't have this one prepared ahead of time, but it just popped in my head. If you could put together your ideal dream team to create a movie, who would you have as the screenwriter? Who would you have as the lead actor, the director, and the lead producer?
Oof.
Oh, okay.
This is elaborate.
This is a great question.
If I can add
so-
to that, maybe
yeah.
also music.
yeah, like
Oh,
composer.
no, yeah, it's a
Or
good
like
point.
score,
Yeah, composer,
yeah.
Okay.
composer, or
Yeah.
score. Yeah.
And why is it?
Okay,
John
so
Williams?
it's a Star Trek movie, and
Of course.
the director of the Star Trek movie is Jonathan Frakes, who
Because
if
it
you
has
don't
to be
know-
because it's Star
Yeah,
Trek.
he played Riker in The Next Generation, but he also directed First Contact and Insurrection, which, in my opinion, are the strongest pairing of
he
two films
also-
that follow in a row.
I think he's also directed a lot of episodes of the newer Treks, if I recall.
He has
correctly.
directed some episodes of Discovery and some episodes of Picard, but he was
I knew he
not
did a couple of
selected.
Picard.
He was not selected for Star Trek Nemesis, the 10th Star Trek film, which is in the Next Generation line, and that movie was awful because the new director didn't know anything about Star Trek, and he thought that Geordi LaForge's character was an alien, which I assure you he is not. He is a human man. He just happens to wear a visor because he is blind, but most definitely not an alien. And
I have
so
no words.
Jonathan Frakes would be my director because I think he understands Star Trek, and I think that as many people watch Star Trek and like it, I don't know how many people actually understand what it's supposed to be doing.
Yeah.
My
I'll agree
screenwriter
with that.
will be Alex Garland, who wrote Annihilation, Ex Machina, Dread, Sunshine, 28 Days Later. He's penned some of my favorite screenplays. He also understands science fiction. And if you watch Ex Machina and you watch Sunshine, you watch Annihilation, and you watch Dread, they're all in different genres, right? Dread's an action movie, and Sunshine is like kind of a science fiction movie. Annihilation is like rooted mostly, honestly, in thriller. And he's so based on fundamentals. He doesn't write anything that's too flashy or,
He writes stories that
Awkward.
audiences can follow, and he has the talent to write that story in whatever genre is required or desired. Yeah, I get
exactly.
that.
You watch 28 Days Later. It's just a fun. It's a movie with solid fundamentals. There's nothing sort of exceptional generally about it, but it's really good because it's rooted in good practice. My cinematographer will be Simon Dugan, who did the cinematography for Baz Luhrmann's Great Gatsby, and he also did the cinematography for I, Robot.
Okay, I was
The
like,
Will Smith.
I
He's
was-
done
I
other
was
stuff. He
wondering
did-
why
he did
that
Warcraft.
name sounded familiar. I was like, okay.
He did Warcraft as well, and for as much controversial opinion as there is about that movie, the cinematography is perfect. And in terms of producers, I honestly have a lot of difficulty picking producers for films these days because my instinct in terms of like who has successfully produced the most movies like the movie I want them to make is J.J. Abrams. But
then it's
J.J. Abrams
involved
comes
in a
with
Star Trek.
J.J. Abrams comes with Alex Kurtzman and Damon Lindelof, and like he only seems to produce projects with his team.
Yeah.
But in terms of someone who I think actually has the contacts and the like experience to pull it off, Abrams would actually be the choice.
I don't know if I've actually asked you what you think of the newer Star Trek films.
Yeah, I that's great.
Oh,
Honestly,
sorry.
that's a great
That
question.
is a great question.
I'm also wondering that.
Okay.
Like,
I didn't know if that was on your list. But
no, I
like,
didn't. I did
popped
not
up.
have that one on the list.
Oh,
But that's a
okay.
great question. So.
I don't know if I've asked you about what you think about like the J.J. Abrams and then like, everything else that's come after that, like the newer.
It's
Star
a good
Trek.
question. I think I love 2009 Star Trek, the first one of the J.J. Abrams films. I think it's really good at establishing a new universe, and I think it's a great action movie. But I don't think that the universe they're creating is one that's sustainable to actually explore interesting Star Trek stories in. Or more accurately, I don't think they want to. I think they want to make an action movie franchise, and Star Trek excels on. Star Trek is a world of contrast. The greatest TNG episode for a lot of people is the 2-part Best of Both Worlds episode, which is a season finale and a season premiere, and it's an incredible episode full of action and excitement. And then the follow-up episode to that is season 4, episode 2, Family, which is a quiet little episode about Worf's parents and about Picard's brother. And there is no action, there is no fighting, and like that's what Star Trek is. It's a balance. It's about the world we live in, and I don't live in a world where there's constant gunfire and the Beastie Boys are playing. That sounds awesome, but I don't live there. So it worked for one movie, but I don't think it works when they just keep repeating that, basically.
Yeah, the at least the movie universe to me feels like they want to make Star Trek Star Wars.
Yes,
And
I agree.
While Star Trek actually does provide a decent setting to do that with, what has made Star Trek different from Star Wars historically is exactly what Rory's getting at. There's a little bit of slice of life to it, and then there's a lot of philosophy and other things that get brought into it. Like one of my favorite episodes is actually one you mentioned earlier on the podcast, Rory, is Measure of a Man.
Yeah.
It's literally an episode where they are debating the sentience and the individuality of Data. Is Data a person or is he equipment? And it's a great episode because there has been, in my opinion, very, very few works of art in film, comics, whatever, to depict AI as anything other than, oh, well, it's an antagonistic force or it's an antagonistic person or whatnot, right?
Yes,
And,
exactly, yeah.
Data is way more realistic of what our, first few sentient AIs will be if we ever get to that point. Somebody who's extremely curious, but would still be implanted with morals and stuff like that. So I love that whole episode because I think that singular episode does a better job of asking the question of what will AI be like than 99% of other media involving AI, bar none, regardless of whether it's book, movie, game, whatever.
I agree with that 100%.
Singular episode is way better at exploring the concepts and the conflicts that might arise with that.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's Star Trek to me. Quintessentially, that is Star Trek. Yes, there's phasers and space battles and all sorts of cool stuff like that too, but that universe is used as a vehicle to tell those kinds of stories. Versus Star Wars, it's meant to make basically the JJ Star Trek films are Star Wars, in my opinion. They're just Star Wars in a different universe.
I mean, think about how they've aged. Why is Star Trek: The Next Generation still watchable? It's because it doesn't rely on the special effects that much. Most of it is not spaceships fighting in space. Most of it is people walking around on the inside of a spaceship having actual human interaction and actual human problems.
Man, I just want to let's just sign off and watch some Star Trek right now.
Let's just watch Measure of a Man. It's
Party after the stream.
So follow up to Sugar's question though, because you answered in terms of the J.J. Abrams movies, but what do you think of Discovery and Picard? Because I assume you've watched both.
I'm not caught up on Discovery for what it's worth.
Okay.
It's a tricky business because I think Picard is indisputably very well read on its Star Trek, and that's a matter of record as well. The writer for Picard, whose name is escaping me at the moment, is a lifelong Star Trek fan. And I also
Yeah,
believe
I can't
understand
remember which
Star
one it
Trek.
was, but I know he wrote a bunch of TNG episodes and a couple of other episodes in other series as well. Like he's been there forever. Yeah.
He's terrific, and the idea, because a few people have said online, oh, like the people who wrote this clearly weren't Star Trek fans. That's just wrong. That's it's just incorrect. Just because you didn't like it doesn't mean they weren't Star Trek fans. I enjoyed watching Picard, certainly. I think it has issues with. Let me think. Picard has issues with what a television show is supposed to do, especially at the end of a season, which is the main essential thing you want if you're going to do a cliffhanger ending or like an ending, and you want to expand on it, is get me thrilled about what you're going to do next. Don't make me nervous about how you're going to explain what you just did.
Yeah, so I do actually know a little bit about why that is, though, and it's because apparently they didn't know they were getting a second season until they were like halfway through filming. And
yes,
so
that is correct.
Rewrote the last episode like while they were filming it, essentially. So I could see that there, and you can definitely tell that that's kind of the case. But
it's a good show. I still think it's a good show.
Excuse what you're saying. Yeah.
I feel like it would have been kind of cool, actually, for it to just be a one-season thing. It would have worked. I mean, I watched that whole thing with Rory, so...
I mean, and you can tell what ending they had beforehand, too. You can definitely tell where they were going.
Yep.
And then they just kind of take this plot line and just the Deus Ex Machina, and all right, cool, we're good.
Yeah,
Season 2, let's go.
Yeah, I agree. Discovery, I don't know if I'm technically more positive on Discovery. Discovery got a lot of hate before it came out. I don't want to get too much into the reasons why, because it delves into some topics that are probably best discussed on a podcast that isn't this one. But I disagreed with all the criticism it got before it came out about what it was trying to do.
I agreed with some of the criticism during at least the first season's run, though. Like snafus.
I think as far as modern science fiction shows and shows that are based on a Star Trek universe, even though the continuity is a little finicky because it's still in prime timeline, but it's prequel and there's some stuff they really shouldn't have access to technologically that they do have access to in that show. So if you're willing to, it's the equivalent of the Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes films. Forgive the stylistics, and I think it's a really good show. You know?
Yeah.
So for the question you asked prior, I don't think Roy answered about the composer.
Oh, yeah.
For
the movie.
Dennis McCarthy, who did Star Trek movies and Deep Space Nine and Voyager. That Dennis McCarthy. Stick with Dennis McCarthy. Don't change anything. Don't bring in anyone new.
Don't bring in that god awful Enterprise intro song.
Oof, yeah, that one's rough. For those who don't know, you can look up on YouTube the Enterprise intro.
Did you show me that one? I think
there's
two
versions of it, and they're both terrible.
I think I might have said that it didn't sound like it went to a Star Trek show.
Hans Zimmer.
Just so you know, Melly's saving your questions, by the way, guys.
Yeah, I don't think we're not getting to them. We're
actually, Melly, I was going to ask before we switch gears if you had any like film-related ones to.
Actually, I
off.
did before we. I mean, because I got this list of the questions from chat as well.
I
did have one question for Rory. So, how has your like knowledge and enjoyment and appreciation of film? How has that influenced and informed your appreciation of gaming? Because I know that like for you, television and film kind of came first, and then gaming kind of came, like the hardcore gaming, I guess I should say, came a little bit later. So how has that kind of influenced and informed your appreciation of games?
That's a good question, actually, and it's a convenient question because I was thinking about this kind of recently. I think it's made me look to games for something different than what I get from movies. So, like, for instance, like Tater loves games because of the narratives, and I don't. I like games because of the mechanics. And So I think that's why, is because I get my narrative universe lore developing fix mostly from film and television. And when I play games, I'm looking for something a little more mechanical, a little more action focused, and I think that's why I gravitate towards things like stealth games, is because they're minimal on narrative and gameplay heavy. They get through the cutscenes as fast as they can because they want you to play, so I think that's my biggest thing, is it influences the kind of games I seek out more so than it influences the way I think about the kind of games that I play. It happens very early, you know?
Yeah. That makes sense. It's like, for you, gaming isn't more of a unique experience because, yeah, you don't necessarily need it for the narrative, but it's like this whole playground, basically.
Yeah,
for you to
exactly.
kinda
And
exercise that appreciation.
if I play a game with too good a narrative, I inevitably sort of get upset that I have to pick up the controller and play it. Like, I would rather just watch it. Like, you know,
This is what Twitch is for. So we can
yes,
watch.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if we wanted to move on to the chat questions. Did you have more
so I
questions,
can
Zippy?
I can move on to a different section of questions because I was focusing mostly on film. Or if you want to ask any from chat questions on film, we can do that and then move on. It doesn't matter to me either way. We can put the chat questions all at the end. We can spice them throughout, or
yeah, we can kind of. Put
Oh
them
my
at the
god,
end.
Trev.
okay. All right.
There's the line here. So
That's why I thought you noticed.
Well,
How long
okay,
has that been there, Trev?
Not long, like 20 seconds.
oh my lord, wow.
So I guess going off of Sugar's question, let's move over to gaming. What is your favorite game of all time, and why?
Okay, yeah.
I know that's kind of a tough question for most people. What's your favorite whatever?
Oh, I think I already know.
It's Dishonored.
Not
I
for
can
me.
tell you right now.
It's Dishonored 2.
Dishonored 2, yep.
I mean, it goes very much off what I just said. I love mechanics.
Right, yeah.
And mechanics are no good if you don't have good levels to use them in. You can have the best mechanics in the world. If you have a really linear stealth level, I'm not going to enjoy your game. Like, Dishonored has the ideal combination of great mechanics to let you do a bunch of different stuff and a playground to let you use it in.
Yeah. Well, and then there's, I feel like Dishonored, I haven't played a whole lot of it myself. I just played a little bit of the first one. But the impression I got is that it's a very emergent gameplay friendly game versus being like super rigid and linear, right? Like you use this ability and it tricks this kind of guard into doing this. Well, no, in Dishonored it's like, well, there's a crate up there, there's also a traffic cone over there, and there's a guy over there. I can use telekinesis to literally knock him out with the traffic cone if I want. Like, that's emergent gameplay, right? Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like they're heavy on that versus
definitely
the more rigid style.
very heavy on that. Yeah, and it's got the narrative that perfectly suits it. It's the kind of narrative that's simple enough that you don't need to spend a lot of time explaining it. So it lets you play. And the AI programming is really, really good. Really good. Which, you know, that's also a huge part of mechanics for me personally.
So what is your least favorite gaming trend? You know, is it quick time events? Is it the sepia filter that has luckily gone away? Is it?
Yeah, that's a good question. What is my least favorite trend?
Microtransactions.
Honestly, like that's not a bad answer, actually.
I realized
But
6 season passes for $50.
What's my least favorite gaming trend is such a good question. I think my least favorite gaming trend, if I had to pick something, is how much like someone will try to do something unique in gaming. Like, as much flack as it gets, I think Borderlands does something very unique in the gaming space. And then when it did it, other people were like, oh yeah, the Borderlands thing, let's do that. It like defeats the point. Like, someone tries to do their own thing and do a cool genre blend, and then 8 other people jump on it. And we're like, yeah, that's the genre blend. People like that. It's like, no, we like the fact that it's novel and interesting. So I guess my least favorite trend in gaming is trends in gaming.
Well, like a few years ago, remember, like there, like people. I mean, I know like there's a lot of battle royale games that a lot of people like now,
yeah,
but like now there was like one cool battle royale game that
Back in
everybody's
the
like,
day,
hey,
it
this
was
is kind of
PUBG
neat.
or
And then
H1
now,
or whatever. And now it's
now
every
so
single
many
game.
games have some kind of battle royale mode
Oh yeah,
in their game.
It's almost required if you're doing a multiplayer game that you tack on some half-finished BR. Like,
I would have also
it's
gone
really
with
funny.
microtransactions.
Yeah.
Well, those can be done like
too.
correct. I feel like the way that most companies that aren't
Ghost Akimbo 357.
that aren't
God damn it, Ghost! I'm triggered.
that aren't EA have handled that or just pretty well because like they give you the option as long as it's not like stuff that's like game breaking. Like in Battlefront 2, it was like, oh, if you get Darth Vader out of this loot box, you're overpowered or whatever. But in like certain games, it's like, oh,
Yeah,
it's just cosmetic
the only time,
stuff. It's like,
yeah, the
that's
only
fine.
time that I'm okay with that is when it's a cosmetic thing, because it's like, okay, so you want your characters to be dressed up in pajamas, you know, like whatever.
Yeah, it's like that's fine.
You
Like,
know?
but if you're sitting there like, oh, I need to pay to get this character to be 10,000 strength higher, then it's like, well,
Like I just started the game today, I'm gonna spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Like, meh.
Yeah,
It's just
yeah,
not my favorite
what?
thing.
Yeah. So on the flip side of that coin, though, what is your favorite new trend in video gaming? Like something within the last, I'll say decade, just to be generous.
Okay. I don't play them, but they've done something good for the genres I like. Dark Souls. And they taught people patience. Like that's what
they taught some
gamers-
people patience.
Yeah.
I don't
They
know
taught
if
other
I learned
people how to
that yet.
controller. Yeah.
I'm constantly telling her
I mean, I'll be honest. I don't
stamina
know- I don't know what
management, and
patience
she's
is.
running in there. Oh, I can't swing anymore. I'm like, bro, stamina
Yeah.
management.
The like
Kinda
I
like
think
DS.
like I think the reason a lot of people shy away from stealth games is because you're usually just looking and observing so you can learn a pattern and then make a motion. And I don't think people usually like doing that, to be honest. Like people don't like just sitting there and being patient. But like games like Dark Souls have taught people that you can't just hopefully most people that you can't just always rush in. And I think that has made it easier for fighting games even, right? Like people are like, "Oh, I have to learn. I'm going to lose before I win," which is like I think also what keeps people from fighting games oftentimes is like the delayed reward. It's like there's no psychological reward.
I didn't win
in-
a single Soul Calibur match today. I was just happy anytime I got a single like knockout or ring out.
Right, which is what you got to do, right? When
Yeah.
Melly played, I watched Melly play Bloodborne on stream, and Melly didn't view all her losses as the same loss. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
I died, but I did this time better than I did it the last time, and that's what you have to do in fighting games and in action games, and like that's an attitude that I think Dark Souls has taught people. So I'm thankful for its existence.
I was been
Okay.
practicing parrying for an hour on Friday with the same guy. It's like, I'm gonna get this eventually.
I know a lot of you may not know this because it was in the early days when we were still streaming, like starting. He was like hesitant on getting Nemo or not Nemo, Neo,
yeah, Nemo. Yeah.
because he was like, I don't know if people are gonna want to watch this. Like I'm not good at these games, and I had to reassure him. I was like, no, I was like that's what people watch these games for, to see people have success
Yeah.
with what they also struggle with.
And that's true. You were right. Like I learned that when I watched other people play them. That was like what was fun for me. What's my opinion on monkeys? They're awesome. They're troublemakers.
also-
I like troublemakers.
They also like I think you also mentioned this, Trev, a few days ago, but it's not only just seeing them like overcome what you have struggled with, but also to see like their journey and their growth, like as a player and in their skill set. Wow.
Because like
I
I
could
could
do
do
sentences today, I swear.
I could do a fight like one way, and then they could do it a different way. Like, oh, I didn't know you could do it that way, and then like, it's like, oh, okay, so now I have something I can also do if I wanted to.
Well, like I watched Tiff play through at least part of her playthrough of Sekiro.
Yes.
And there's like I remember watching
What is
her
Sekiro?
fight. Sekiro. You know what I meant.
No, I'm just saying that because I never finished.
Like
I barely
there's a
got through
boss
it.
that she was fighting, and it was like on a bridge, and the way you have to beat the boss is to basically get them to fall off the edge of the bridge.
Oh yeah.
And like it was just cool seeing her puzzle that out. Like I had never seen the boss before, so I didn't get it. Like I didn't figure it out until her second or third attempt. And then like I think she figured it out like the attempt after that. It was just like it was cool to watch her like figure that. Oh, he stumbles when I do this. I have to get him to do that over the edge.
Yeah.
So that was fun to watch. Even though I will never play that game. You will not catch me playing that one. I would.
How are you gonna do the
so
co-op
hard.
Saturday now? God damn it, Zippy.
No, we already, dude. We're doing that with Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
right? Yeah.
Assassin's Creed.
So you're on this stream team. It's called True Variety.
That's
which
right.
leads me
Yeah.
into my next point, which is you play so many different types of games. You play stealth games, you play character action games, you play shooters, you play fighter games. What, like, if you can, briefly describe to me, like, how you got into each of these varied genres and why they still resonate with you today. Because you play, like, a wider gamut than most gamers, I would say. So.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. So, so with the stealth games again, it was really Metal Gear Solid, the demo for Metal Gear Solid, and it was just oh, I played that. Let me play Metal Gear Solid 1. And my cousin had the first Splinter Cell, and I remember I just started the game, like I hit continue, I guess. I was like playing a level he had played, and I walked into a house and went down a ladder, and then there, damn it, Sam, you got caught, or whatever he says. And I was like, I hardly did it. I did the 3 things, and I got caught. And I was like, okay. Walk into the house again. And I was like, okay, go down the ladder again. I got caught again. And just like doing this over and over again, like I was, 7, so I didn't put together like the gameplay loop or however, maybe I was 8 or 9 or something when that came out. But like I started to connect the dots on like that I liked stealth games, I guess, right? Between Metal Gear Solid, and now I had the second example, Splinter Cell. And like I like embraced the idea of like someone made this puzzle for you. And my father introduced me to Riven, a sequel to Myst. And I started playing that.
Also related to Crystal Key. But I know a lot of people don't know that one as much.
I don't think I know Crystal Key, actually. I'll have to look into that. And it was like I'd never embraced puzzle games, but like the idea of solving a puzzle in a game, not explicitly like a puzzle game like some of the modern ones they have now, but like that idea really started to appeal to me.
I gotcha, yeah.
Shooters, I think, it was an extension of things like Half-Life. And I loved the Jedi Knight games as a kid because I think like a lot of
Jedi
kids
Knight
growing
was a
up.
great series. Great series.
I did enjoy Star Wars, even though I was always more embracing of the Star Trek universe. I enjoyed Star Wars, and I thought the fact that it had games was awesome. And I think that was my introduction.
Used to have a lot of games from a studio that almost exclusively made those or other irrelevant games that were hilarious and great.
That's right.
They
yeah.
got killed.
In some ways, Star Trek was one of the more adventurous game franchises, like overall. It worked as a racing game, and it worked as a third-person game, and it worked as a flying game. And now it doesn't work at all.
I was actually just reading, I was watching a YouTube vid about how that's the case with Star Wars as well, right? Like you got pod racers for racing, you have starfighters to do flight sims, you have Jedi to do character action games, and you have just your regular ass scoundrels scraping by to do, Wild West shooter type things. Like you could make any genre of game fit in the Star Wars universe, as evidenced by Jedi Fallen Order. You can even make a Dark Souls game.
I forgot about that one. That one's good. I was referring to the Battlefront games when.
Before terrible EA. Yeah.
And so I think that was
actual LucasArts before new LucasArts, which isn't LucasArts. Don't be fooled. Yeah.
But I think that was my introduction to shooters. Fighting games, I saw Tekken 3 at the store and bought it. And I was
Was
like,
that it? So I want to expand on the fighting game thing.
sure.
So what was that really just the decision that made you choose Tekken over? Because I know a lot of people either camp Tekken, camp NetherRealm
Street-
Studios, camp Street Fighter, camp Soul Calibur, whatever, or
Sure, yeah.
camp Brawl or Smash Bros, or as Tony calls them, party games.
Yeah.
So what drew you to that one particular? Was it the characters, the like animation style, the graphics?
It was
or-
the art.
I have a follow-up question also after that.
Sure, yeah, it was the art, honestly. Like, that made me start with Tekken, and then when I played it, I found the gameplay, like, even though Tekken is regarded as one of the more technical fighting games, it's like, it's exactly what I would make if I was going to make a fighting game. It has all the intuitions of movement that I have personally. Everything about it is like it generally is just exactly the way I would make it. The music was awesome. When when Tekken 4 was on the PS2, it really like looked beautiful for a PS2 game. It had destructible environments, and as a kid, that's what you like. You want to do the cool shit, right? Like, and I think that was what made me pick it over like Street Fighter and other things, was the art. And then once you start playing, you get used to it, and and then you just follow the franchise because there's so many Tekken games. It's actually kind of ridiculous. Like,
Well, because I know, so as you know, I'm like a NetherRealms fan, and that's because the characters of the NetherRealms games really like were like, oh shit, like this is cool. Like Scorpion's like an undead dude who can breathe fire and like use all these weapons, and he screams, "Get over here!" and like that's
right? Yeah. Yeah, so probably Kid
Over
had like a
here.
different art style than Kid Rory, I guess. Probably is what did it ultimately.
My follow-up question was like how exactly you got to wanting to use a fighting stick in the first place, and why you continue. I mean, I know this, but for everybody else, for why you continue to use the fight stick today.
So I never had any friends who played Tekken growing up who wanted to play with me. So I was mostly playing single player modes and like the arcade modes over and over again. And there was some stuff that I consistently was just not able to do, some combos and some moves that I was just not able to do on the controller. And I never figured out why, because the only thing anybody ever tells you exists is a controller, because they were on the PlayStation, and so you just play with the controller, but I kept feeling like I was handicapped by the thing I was supposed to be using. And then I think Tekken 6 was out. Or maybe it's Tekken Tag 2. It was quite late in the Tekken lifetime was out. And I started to learn about... So this was only a few years ago. I started to learn how to correctly play the game. What it meant to do a block punish or a whiff punish. And I heard about quarter circle motions. And a quarter circle on a controller is down, down, forward, forward. Which, if you think, makes the shape of a quarter circle. But that's not... It's not really the shape, right? And it was just like, I thought in my head, like, it would make a lot more sense if I was actually doing a circle motion. And the fighting game players online, they were using sticks. And I was like... But they warned people not to switch to stick. They're like, if you're on pad, play with pad. It's what you're used to. It'll be better. But even though I had been on pad the whole time, I had always felt like I wasn't supposed to play with that. So I bought a stick, and instead of what's supposed to happen when you get a stick, which is you're supposed to get worse, after like a week, I got 1,000,000 times better. Like,
So, pro tip to anyone going into a fighting game: this D-pad right here, this
Don't
is
use
fucking
it.
garbage.
use
This
a
is
deal or
goddamn
PS4
garbage.
controller.
This is not a D-pad. This is a wiggly noodle that sometimes puts inputs in and sometimes doesn't.
Yep, what you gotta use is a modded Nintendo Switch Joy-Con. That's how you do it.
Have you ever used, or would you ever consider using a DDR pad to do a fighting game?
for the
Oh my
gimmick,
God.
for the YouTube video, maybe, but
For the YouTube video, for them sweet views on that Twitter GIF.
You can call it like real life fighting and game fighting, because it's like
yeah.
You set up what you do is you set up 2 DDR mats, right? one for your D-pad input, and one for your face buttons, and then you're dancing while you're punching the one you have hanging for your face buttons.
That would require so much coordination to like understand. Like,
Exactly.
Cool
Would
guys,
you want
right?
to
You're
show?
actually fighting someone.
Would you want to show your fighting stick real quick?
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
someone's right
Yeah,
there.
yeah.
It
Okay.
is right there. So
Show and
It's
tell
all-
is a part of
This will be
every-
special because this is only going to be my fight stick for another month or so because I'm getting a new one. But this is a Quanba drone. It is a
What are
Japanese.
you doing with the
style
old
fighting
one?
stick. The good
Not
question.
related question
be
at all.
careful because
So if he wants to
Tater,
try it.
As
Tater
Ah,
already
okay.
knows.
I decided to sell it.
No, that's fine.
She got very excited about it. So sorry.
Tib.
There's a gate under this stick, right? It's a square, right? So you can feel, as you move the stick around, you can feel the edges of the square. American sticks in the old arcades used octagonal gate.
Yeah,
The
I would
Americans-
say they felt more rounder than like.
Yeah, and you can feel, as you're doing your quarter circle, you can feel the little bends in the gate.
Yeah.
Tater
I
said, hey, now let's not do anything crazy.
Like that, because I don't need feedback to tell me I did a quarter circle. I know did a quarter circle, so I have no need for that.
Yeah.
And the choice of gate is an important one for stick players, and it's got your layout. It's like a tilted. Think of it as a tilted PlayStation controller. So these buttons here that are in this like almost square pattern are just a tilted version of the buttons, the face buttons that you have on your controller.
Right, and then the other four are your triggers and bumpers, I assume.
Are your triggers and bumpers, exactly. There is no other stick because you don't have a need for another stick.
Okay, so I
And-
thought the layout was like you had one finger on every, like one finger would be X and then triangle, square, and then circle, as opposed to.
Oh, you thought it was like
Yeah.
this? Yeah. No,
like
yeah,
that,
no.
as
It's
opposed to.
Like Guitar Hero.
Yeah, kind of like you just have it like that, and then you reach up when you need to use the other one.
But the fight sticks, a lot of them that you get actually have replaceable art here. So, like fighting games, they're not often respected for this, but they're all about expressing who you are. Like, what character you pick, that matters. Like that says something about you. And the controller you use even says something about you. And people use their own art. They put in their anime waifu or whatever. They put a big picture of her right next to the joystick, and it's just another way that fighting games are an opportunity to express something about yourself. Morgan has seen me play Tekken, right? And Morgan knows like what characters I use and what player card I use.
We've all played Tekken IRL, actually.
Yeah, we've all played Tekken, actually, as it would turn out, yeah.
So two things.
Yeah, we'll call my attempts at Tekken playing it.
So two things. I think there's a, like you were saying, that like who you choose as a character really like says something about you. I think there's actually like Reddits or like posts about like if you play this character, then you're more of a, like aggressive person or something, and then like if you play this person, you want to be more safe and like ranged or something. And then the second thing is, so I know you're super into like stealth games and like games with a lot of mechanics. So that begs the question: how did you get into Devil May Cry? Because that was one of the first things we talked about when we started.
Yeah, I was actually going to cover that
because that's not really like a game I would think you'd be into.
Yeah, actually, that's fair. I think the thing that got me first into Devil May Cry was that it was a game I'd heard about, and I was like, I'll try it. And I didn't know it was an action game because it was such a pioneer. There were action games.
Was the first one you started with the first one, or did you start with 3? Or
I went
2?
back after and played others.
Oh,
I think
okay.
I technically started with 4, 4. And then I was like, okay, what is this? Like, what's going on here? Because it was so strange to me and unique. But honestly, the mechanical depth got me immediately. Like, that like hooked me. Like, even though it's not like the other mechanics that I liked, I was like, it was so tight and controlled. And whenever you died, it's because it was your fault. And I love that. Like, the worst thing you can do to a player is make them feel like they died because you screwed up in programming the game. Like, you want to die because you're not good enough.
And I think a lot of people don't realize how much goes into that. Like, we were just complaining about this the other day when we were playing Quake. Like, it's hard to tell when you get hit in Quake because it doesn't have the greatest feedback for that. So like
Yes.
designing that feedback from both like an auditory and a visual standpoint is a huge part of games that people I think often overlook, both as players and designers. Like you need to have good design on both of those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Devil May Cry has great feedback. Like it's just as much an audio visual experience as it is a gaming experience. You know.
So to expand on the Devil May Cry thing, you were saying that you've never played, and like you probably won't play the Dark Souls games, but like I know it's a meme here that we say like kind of like Dark Souls, but
Yeah.
the newer ones are definitely more like a Dark Souls like game, in the sense that like now you have, or they've always been, to my extent, like you go into an area and there's a boss fight and then they have a health bar, so you just gotta diminish that. Then there's phases and it gets harder each phase, and then it's like there's something that comes up and then you gotta adapt to that. So it's like, what made the difference between Devil May Cry then that you like wanted to play it as opposed to like Dark Souls or something?
So I did try Dark Souls, and the thing that really didn't connect with me was the art style. And it's one of the reasons why when Neo came out, I wanted to play that, because I was like, oh, it's Dark Souls, but an art style I can get behind, kind of thing. Like the art I thought was really good. I loved the color palette, and I still want to get back to Neo and play it eventually. I don't want to say the dreariness of Dark Souls, because Neo isn't exactly a feel good toy poodle parade either, but it's there's something about, there's like more contrast, there's a lot more light in there with the dark, and
it's not as like despairing when you look at it, because like
it's not quite as visually oppressive, I think.
Well, I think that's because in Dark Souls, that in the actual title is Dark Souls, and then Neo is just Neo. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So honestly, I think, and also, I mean, DMC is a lot faster, as a
especially if you
franchise.
play on turbo mode.
Yes, exactly. You get in there and you've got to make quick decisions fast, as opposed to these more deliberate decisions, I guess.
Yes.
But I might become a Souls person eventually. I do love action games, and to be quite honest, there's not a lot of them, so I feel like eventually you run out and you just have to try Dark Souls.
And that's one of those games that are like, it's really rewarding and it pays off when you actually do overcome that like difficult barrier.
Mm-hmm.
And then was, because I know you said mechanics like it's something you like. I think Devil May Cry is the only game I know that actually has a mechanic where it speeds up the game if you turn on turbo mode or not. I don't think I've ever seen that, and I wonder why they did that.
Yeah, I kind of wonder that too.
Because like
actually,
with 20% faster gameplay, that means you have to do the combos a lot quicker and like mash, like million stab for example, like that you have to like mash all the time. I can do that without it on turbo mode, but on turbo mode I can only get like 4 or 5 in.
Yeah. The honestly, I think it's because Devil May Cry is like, unlike, so fighting games, people always say have really high skill ceilings, right? Because the community is always making itself better. Devil May Cry is interesting because it has a high skill ceiling, but there's no one making you better. There's just the fixed game, but no one ever seems to conquer it, right? Like you just keep getting a little bit better each time, and to be honest, they probably put that in as an attempt to do that. Just be like, there's no players to help improve our players, so let's put in this absurd other turbo mode thing just to see if anyone wants to give it a go, just for anyone who did master the base game, I guess.
I have a question. What is a game that you've never played, not because you don't want to, you've always wanted to play, but you've just never gotten to it?
And why is it Spider-Man?
Not one that you own, I should say.
Oh, it's not a game that I own.
Not a game that you own. Because you obviously have an intention to play it. You already have that one, like say Spider-Man, for example.
Sure, yeah.
But like, what's a game that you don't own that you wish you owned and you want to play sometime, but you've just never gotten to it?
It could be series too.
It's Shrek 2 on Xbox.
It's like a...
I I played that game all the way through.
I have too. Yeah, I played Shrek 2 on Xbox.
It was fun.
The a game I've always wanted to own, and I want to play, but I just I haven't gotten around to getting to a point where I buy it. Oh my god, it's a great question. It deserves a really good answer.
You could pull up your Steam wish list and see if there's anything that you haven't gotten yet, or
It could be anything on any system too, or any on anything on PC, Steam, whatever.
Yeah.
Train Simulator. That's the one.
Train Simulator.
Hi, Beast.
Star Trek Online. Is there really a Star Trek Online?
There is
think-
actually.
There is. Yeah, there
I
really
guess
is.
if they brought back Toontown, I feel like Star Trek Online isn't super.
No, he wants to have more time in Club Penguin before it shut down.
Okay, yeah. My answer is Onimusha. Onimusha is an action game from the PS2 era, and it's a prequel to sort of deliberate action games like Dark Souls in a way. It's not a prequel, sorry, it's a precursor to that sort of attitude of patient gaming and dying easily and having to be really skilled. And I know about it, and I think it's super cool, and I've just never. Melly apparently owns the game.
Oh, all right. Well, there's a real life
That's so
example.
cool, Mel.
Now, have you played that game? Did
They
you-
No, I haven't.
oh no,
This is on the pile of PS2 games that I own, along with Final Fantasy X that I haven't actually played.
Well, you can emulate all of those now, so.
So I had a similar follow-up question to that. That was from my list here. Is there any genre of games outside of the ones that we kind of just blazed through and covered, but that you wish you had explored more of, or that you missed entirely? So yeah, is there something outside of fighting, shooting, character action, out of all of those?
sorry, a
something-
genre or a game specifically?
I'll let you answer with either, but I was looking for a genre. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it could be a game within a certain genre. Probably.
Well, it's
Would
not
be fine.
Yu-Gi-Oh!
I mean, I'm not Zippy,
we're
so
about to
but I
tackle
assume
that,
that's
but-
probably.
Yeah, either's fine. Either's fine.
So okay, I can give two brief, short answers as a response. Actually, so a genre that I wanted to experience more of, but that I don't know if I'd necessarily like, is JRPGs. Because, as I say, I'm not a huge RPG person generally when it comes to Western RPGs, with the exception of a few. But I only got to play a few JRPGs growing up. I never really gave the genre if you look through the list of must-play JRPGs, I've probably played almost none of them. And
I'm much the same, to be honest.
so that I guess that is the genre. But in terms of a game specifically, I really need to give a chance to, because I know I'd like it, is Yakuza. Without a doubt, a game franchise. There's 6. And
Actually, there are 7 of them, and there will soon be 8 of them.
Yes.
And no, I am not
The
counting.
next one is going to be
that-
a turn-based or whatever.
Yeah, I'm not counting that weird one that they did on the PS3 that was a shooter zombie game. But yeah, because there's also Yakuza 0.
Pokemon Ice Dragon. The
I have played all the Yakuza games except for 3, which I'm playing through.
Any particular? Well, you said Pokemon, but you didn't really know many of the gens except for up to 2 up until
1
now.
and 2.
Yeah.
I played 1 and 2 rigorously, but that was the last Nintendo console I owned, was a Game Boy Advance before my Switch.
Yeah, before this was obviously.
I've suggested, because Rory is actually talking to me about it one time, because he's like, I kind of want to try out some JRPGs. What would you suggest? And I was like, honestly, I mean, especially since he has a PS4, but if he was ever able to get, or Switch, to be honest, I might actually say play this one on the Switch instead, with what I'm about to say. But if he got a 3DS, he could play a bunch of the series, but I suggested Dragon Quest. It's because there's a lot to do, and it's fun, and it's rich in storyline. So Chrono Trigger would be a fun game to see either you or Morgie stream. I have Chrono Trigger. I love that game. It's good.
The octopus is back.
Well, that was pretty much what I had for the
Oh, no,
gaming
Rory froze for me.
stuff.
Okay, yeah, Rory
Yeah,
froze for me
Rory's
also.
like,
Roy froze.
I thought it was just me.
He's
Wait,
not
wait, no,
freezing,
he's
but
back.
he's like very low on like 8-bit and then like cutting in and out.
Am I back?
Rory, come
Kind
back
of.
to
You're a
us.
Think
robot
so?
though.
Maybe, sort of.
Let it level out a little. I think you're kind of back. It's an island thing. It's PowerPoint now.
Oh
Alright.
no.
Oh, it's a slideshow.
It's a slide.
I mean, we can still
Can
hear
you
you.
can you still hear us, Rory?
Yes. Can you still hear me?
Yes, but you
It's
sound like
working out for
RoboCop.
me.
Yeah,
Oh,
it's
wait,
kind of like it's kind of catching up a little bit, but then it stops.
He's
He's
practicing,
practicing for
Evo.
Evo. Oh my god.
Oh.
All right, everyone, go tweet at what is it, Rogers or?
Hang on a minute. Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave the call and I'm gonna come back, but I haven't abandoned you. I'll be right back.
All right, yeah, no worries. And the layout's gonna fuck up, but he'll be right
Oh,
back.
no.
So.
Will it?
Yeah.
It'll be
So now,
different?
now
Oh.
we are all two people.
He's back.
Oh, it's
Alright.
the same for me. Oh, I mean, for when it was 4. I see.
Hi.
Okay, yeah, you know you're
All
good
right, now it works. There we go. I was saying that's pretty much what I had for the gaming questions. If anybody has a follow up they want to throw at him real quick, otherwise we could move forward.
I have the questions from chat unless anybody else
Yeah.
wanted to. Okay, so I was kind of going all the way back to the first one that Tater had. This is about teaching.
Sure.
When you taught your first class, what were your expectations, and then what actually happened?
Did you expect people
oh,
to cheat and get caught?
That's a good question. Like when I actually started. Well, my first experience as a TA, I guess, like I used to run a lab, a technical writing lab. Was my expectation was that, I was gonna get to use a lot of my knowledge and my energy to hopefully relate to the students in a way the professors couldn't, and I really wanted to like help them get better because I didn't necessarily love the way I was always taught, so I thought I could improve on that. And I realized that actually only works if students show up. So my expectation was to help students, and what actually happened was very few students ever showed up. So, I guess, like, I was sad that I couldn't get up. I couldn't get to them because they weren't there. Like, it only.
You were that guy who
I
was
realized
like,
the
"I reached
importance.
these kids."
I realized the importance of like early education. Like once you get kids at university, most of the work is already done, whether it was good work or bad work. And so like I guess there was a level of disappointment then, but I started doing guest lectures after that, and that had a much better response. Like more students showed up to that because they were like, video game AI guy. Like video games, good, exciting. Like I show up. And then I started teaching higher level students, and that was a lot better. Like, because a fourth year engineer wants to show up. Yeah.
Yeah.
A 19-year-old doesn't necessarily want to show up.
So
right?
a kind of like follow up for that would be, what would be the lowest age group or like grade you would consider teaching, or like even something for? Or,
I would definitely teach high school students. And again, I want to stress that I think like even by then a lot of the work has been done. I just think that I'm the wrong person to teach young kids. Like I think the thing I most bring to the table is intuitive explanations of technical details, and I feel like
And, like,
that
a sixth grader's
skill
not
is
gonna
lost
understand.
below high
Yeah.
school. Like the
So any
But, yeah,
particular
it's high
grade in high school? Like, would you prefer seniors, juniors, or like just anyone? Or
I prefer entering high school students, to be honest. I think it's like it's good to get people at the end or at the beginning oftentimes. At the end when they're motivated to finish, or at the beginning when no one else has gotten to them and made them hate everything.
So like 14 to 15 years old around?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think that's a good age.
that, or
to
around
teach
17 to
people
18?
things. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want students coming into their new thing or cluing up their new thing, because like
Yeah.
I don't know. I had professors personally when I was coming up that made me just wonder, like, about my life. Like, you're sitting there and you're having an existential crisis in the classroom because instead of teaching you about databases, the professor is telling me a story about how cartoon penguins don't like pizza. And I'm mostly confused. And no, that was not an arbitrary example.
Someone was playing too much Club Penguin, and what I took away from that.
I still love how the world record for Club Penguin was set like 2 hours before it shut down. By the way, the way you speedrun Club Penguin, because it's a game that you can't really beat, right?
You try to get banned,
how fast can
right?
you get banned from Club Penguin? So this speedrun consists of how fast can I open, confirm my email, sign up for a new account,
And then
log
proceed
in,
to get
and
banned.
say literally anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I have another question, which I feel like Zippy's going to appreciate with his background. But Waltbox, if Waltbox is still here, asks, what is your favorite race and class in D&D or if it's an RPG universe?
That's a good question. I err towards mages.
Not archers.
Generally, not archers. Actually, I generally like to play mages, but I tend to in role playing games, pen and paper, or old school computer role playing games, I tend to err towards ranged mage characters. And as far as like why that is, I don't know, honestly. Like, it just like playing in this beautiful fantasy world and being someone who couldn't use magic just seemed awful. It's like
It
we
seems
live in a
wrong.
world where there's magic. It's
Magic
like
is
that's
fun.
like playing as a muggle in the Harry Potter universe. Like, why bother? Like,
like-
Yeah.
It's like playing a Star Wars game and not being able to shoot a blaster. Like,
Or use
yeah. Like,
So any stormtrooper ever.
if magic exists, I better be able to use it. I guess that's my philosophy.
That's a
She
good
came
point.
for treats
yeah.
and then she booked it.
So I have a couple other questions that I think might be cool. But what? Because we know that you're big on AI, right? I think you're. Are you working on your master's or your?
No, I finished
PhD?
my master's degree. I'm working on my PhD.
Okay, yeah. So you're working for the doctorate at this point.
Yes.
What do you see as the biggest missed potential in or in AI as it specifically pertains to video games? Like, as a guy who knows, the lower and the upper limit of what we can actually accomplish with AI right now, where do you see the biggest missed potential, or what would you do to implement the next generation of video game AI, I guess?
That's a really good question. The biggest missed potential, I think, is honestly getting AI people in to do your AI as opposed to getting programmers in to do your AI, like regular programmers. Like, it's not one of those domains where you can just teach someone AI who already knows how to program. Like, that's a long process. And
Well, especially when you're talking about balancing it for a game too.
yes.
It's extremely easy to
Exactly.
make a terrible robot that can't do anything and is a potato. It's also extremely easy to make an aimbot that is better than any human will ever be.
Yes, exactly.
The trick is creating something believable in the middle.
But I honestly think the biggest missed potential for AI is using AI to create tutorials. So, fighting games do not historically have amazing tutorials. There are exceptions. The Blaze Blue Central Fiction tutorial is one of the best tutorials ever made for anything.
So almost like an AI-driven hidden tutorial, kind of like Half-Life 2 has a tutorial that's basically hidden throughout the first 6 levels.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
the game never gives you a pop-up, the game never tells you explicitly what to do, the game just shows you. And
Yeah,
whether you
exactly.
even realize it or not, the game is teaching you how to play it. You're thinking that, but as an AI opponent that teaches you to play a fighting game.
That's a big part of it, but also,
Okay.
a lot of games, fighting games, they teach you combos, but they don't teach you the timing. And I guess the thought is, how are we going to teach you the timing? Well, you can teach an AI the timing, and it can generate that for you. And it can automatically determine how many frames are necessary because it's tried all the possibilities. You know what I mean? You can get AI to actually generate data for you, about your game, and you can get it to play through and balance things for you. There's a lot of work. There's been some work recently on measuring empirically how difficult a game is, using a combination of a few different factors about reaction time and execution. You can get your AI to go through this procedure and then report back to you about
within this like esoteric value kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like, oh, this combo does this amount of damage and it's this hard, and you could start balancing around that. And so it's a way of teaching players, but also a way of game development. I guess AI is like, it's more than just your opponents in the game. It's a tool for quality assurance, and it's a tool for teaching your players. Quality assurance is a huge missed opportunity. Getting AI.
For sure.
So there was a game that was coming out, and they had their QA testers working on bug testing, right? And the testers realized that if there was a way to get up onto this one rock, you could just demolish this level, right? The level was going to be too easy if you could get up onto the one rock. So the testers kept trying to get up onto the rock to see if they could break it, and they never did. The game came out, and the next day, someone figured out a way to get up onto the rock. That's because people miss things. AI don't miss things. If you could get the AI to run into the rock at every trajectory, at every velocity, and it would figure out if there was a way to get on it.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is the people are always like, well, it's impossible to catch all the bugs because we only have 30 testers and they only get 3 months with the game at the gold version in order to find all these bugs. It's like, yeah, but if you ran AI to test at least like the collision and the bounding and all that kind of stuff, like, yeah, you can get an AI to do that, and then it doesn't matter that you only have 30 QA testers, because that box over there nobody's touched it for 3 months, it's just been running collision. It's literally just got like 3 AI, like 3 versions of the game just running with AI. And
plus, you don't need to buy the box health insurance. The box doesn't cost any money. Yeah. It's not a human that you need to worry about. The box never shows up to work hungover, right? Like, it's just like, it's a computer. Like,
nah, I can't.
And it's perfect for something like bounding, because it's easy to tell an AI, if you could see the wrong side of a texture, the clear side of a texture, you broke it. Make a bug report. Done. Like, now, then they know right there.
Right. Yeah.
But you kind of,
exactly.
like, at least currently, we would need both, though, right? Like, AI is really good for testing that kind of a thing, but they might not be the greatest for testing something like, well, what if I, get this quest stuck in a soft lock and then go pick up this other quest? Like, you could program AI to do that, but weird stuff that humans will do. It's good to have a few humans on the project as well. I guess is what I'm getting at. But yeah,
something I wanted to expand on the AI thing for games is, so for Rory, this kind of loops back to what we were doing in Injustice earlier, but I gave you that tidbit of information about Doomsday, where if he dies, you can't kill him the same way again. So you'd have to find a new way to kill him. So imagine taking that aspect and putting it into the Devil May Cry Bloody Palace, or just in the game in general.
Yeah.
How come with AI we haven't seen like adaptive AI in that regard, where it's like, okay, in the beginning of the game you can kill these things with just a sword by swinging, and then the next level it's like, okay, now they have tougher armor, so you can't just go and hit them with a sword, you have to like use a bow or something, and then the next level it's like, oh,
Trev, you've played an AI like that. We both have.
Have we?
Yes. I don't want to spoil it because some of the people here haven't played that game, but I'll DM it to you if you're curious what I mean. But you and I have both played and beaten the game where that's exactly what happens. The AI of one of the bosses does not let you use the same shit against them more than once.
Well, not necessarily just bosses, but in general for like AI coming.
Oh, you mean just like all across the map? Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I think that would be really cool, actually, Trev, and I think it'd be a great way to teach players new things. Like, maybe that could be your tutorial for Monster Hunter. Instead of just being like, all right, pick a weapon, here's a monster, kill it with all the weapons and see which one you like best. You know
what game kind of does what Trev is talking about, though? Metal Gear Solid 5. Because, like, so the way it works in Metal Gear Solid 5, Trev, is like, let's say you keep infiltrating the enemy bases and you keep tranking them by shooting them in the head with your trank pistol. after like a couple of days of in-game time, all of the soldiers have helmets. You can't do that anymore. If you are a guy who likes to go in at night a lot and you are constantly infiltrating the base and doing objectives during the nighttime, they suddenly start carrying flashlights and their bases get spotlights everywhere and like stuff like that. So the AI in that game learns. Generally, all it does, I think, is just give them more equipment and activate subroutines so that they know how to use that equipment. But it does kind of adapt to your playstyle and make that playstyle more difficult. It doesn't shut it off entirely.
But not quite as
to what extent?
Not quite as in depth as what Trev is getting at.
Yeah, because like,
Trev is thinking like the AI took a left jab and now they will never take a left jab again because they know how to block that or whatever.
Is that something that could be done in like the foreseeable future? Is that something that could be done like now? Is that something that's like too hard to implement without having like?
I think we could do that now. Honestly, it's a rare. Like most, like, I was in my lab, the AI and Games lab, where I did my master's degree, I was the first student. It's still rare to get AI guys and game guys together. To really, train new ones. Usually what it is we're Blizzard. We hired some AI people. Now they're working on Hearthstone AI, which just cheats, but whatever.
I can contest to that. I've played Hearthstone a lot.
Because it doesn't have to show you its cards. It's hidden information, so it can just do whatever it wants. But so it's a lot easier to develop AI for Hearthstone than it is for StarCraft. But it's still rare. I think
StarCraft AI cheats all the time too.
Or actually, now that I think about it. It may be the game you were talking about, but I don't know if you know I played this, Sippy. Shadow of Mordor, the Nemesis system in that kind of has aspect where it's like, oh, you killed
that
this
isn't what I
person
was thinking of, but yeah.
from stealth, and then it's like, well, now they're immune to stealth, and then like the next generals and whatever. But I want that on a larger scale.
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking of a particular boss in a particular game that we both played. I'm sure you could figure it out from there, but
I can't even think of a game that Zippy and Trev have both played.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Trev just asked me about this the other day, which is funny because I beat it like a month ago now.
Ooh, thank you for reminding me, Tater. I haven't done that, but now that work is calmed down, I should do that.
Yeah, you're just gonna DM it to me because I'm blanking.
Is AI really expensive in terms of computing power? Yes and no. Training the AI is. Testing the AI is not, as a general rule.
Running the AI itself once it's been developed, not a problem. But training it, lots and lots of data that you have to feed an AI when you're training it. So it's basically just sitting there crunching numbers for minutes, hours, days, depends on how much data and how complex the AI
I
is.
used to run, my tests would take days to get the data, to run enough games. For an AI that played, thousands of games an hour, it still would take days to generate all of that. And
there's a great YouTube channel, I'm just going to plug something real quick. It's called Code Bullet. And I would check that out because this guy likes to do a lot of videos on things like genetic algorithms and a few other basic AI concepts. But he explains them really well in layman's terms, first off. And B, he writes his experiments in a way that they have funny / memey visualizations to them. So one thing he did was a creature AI that's trying to learn how to use legs and get away from a laser. And so he, of course, made the creatures as derpy as possible to make it funny while they're all getting massacred by this death laser, sleeping across the screen.
I'm linking
but the whole point there is to train one to be able to actually run or walk, right? So
that link I linked is Dr. Thomas Thompson, who is a AI and game specialist. And
those
I really
are
recommend
also
his
great.
channel.
Rory's the one who turned me on to what he just linked there, and I've watched, I think 5 or 6 of them now. They're really good.
They're really good. I recommend the ones on Halo and Fear and StarCraft.
I think the Fear one I would say is the greatest starter of that.
Yes,
because that gives you an idea of how like single actor AI works, and as well as how single actor AI can be manipulated to make it seem like it's multi-actor AI. And then Halo will give you an idea of a completely different paradigm that has some parallels, and the end results are not the same but similar. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I love Halo's AI, by the way. I've always loved Halo's AI
Me too.
ever since they were like, Halo 2, here's what we're doing to upgrade the AI. And I was like, this is mind-blowing. And then they were like, Halo 3, we added a squad system.
So, Melissa, do you
Sorry,
have any
I'm
more
nerding out now.
I do,
chat
especially
questions?
if we're winding down. I have a couple questions that might work well to kind of like close us out. One of them is sort of a goofy question. One of them is a serious question.
Okay.
I just thought this was funny from Tater. So Tater says, Roy, why is it that as someone who loves stealth games, is that during the stealth
read this
portions
one.
of Halo, you just go in guns blazing?
You know what? It sounds like it's just a call out, but I'm also gonna treat it like it's also a legitimate question.
Okay.
And I think it's because, as Zippy said, I do play somewhat a variety of games, more so than almost I would like about myself, because I like to specialize if I can. But
I remember when you started,
I
you're
think
like,
it's because
I'm doing
like
stealth only, and now look at you, you're doing all these different-
yeah, exactly, yeah. And like I guess when I want to play stealth games, I'm just like, I'm in the stealth game mood now. Let's play Origami or whatever. And then, but it's like if I'm playing a shooter, I still think of it, even if it's a single player shooter, I still think of it as a multiplayer shooter situation. And because that's what I came up on. And in a multiplayer shooter, you never like look at a standing opponent and just crouch and just like walk over to him slowly in the hopes that you can melee him in the back, unless you want to die. Like, and I'm just like, enemy shoot. Like, and it doesn't always work out so well in Halo on Legendaries.
So what you're saying is when you play a stealth game, you're like, I can sit here and I can go up to this ledge and then I can use my throwing knife to take out that torch, and after that I can murder this guard and then I can slip into the mansion. Versus shooter, you're like, enemy!
You're just like, say hello to my little friend, and then like you come out and just blow everything up. Like,
what was your other? I guess your other one is the serious one.
Well, yeah, just this is kind of to bring things kind of more current. But Infernus asked a while back, what has been your favorite game to stream in the last month, and why?
In the last month, and
I like
why?
this question.
That's a really good question. Okay, so I think in the last month I've streamed Halo, I've streamed Mark of the Ninja, I've streamed Shadwin, Origami, and Fallout New Vegas, and Tekken 7. What was my favorite game to stream? Origami was my favorite game to stream in the last month, and it's not to say that of the games I played, it's my favorite, but in terms of it was my favorite to stream because
was that the one where it showed the mana and stuff on the cape?
Yeah, that's the one. It
okay,
had no HUD, and it showed your mana bar on the cape. And I think the reason is because people know I like stealth games, but that one I had never played. And I loved it, and I think it's fun to share things like that with my fans, if I can call them fans, the people who come by.
No, they're family.
It's fun to have that, right? Like I get to love this game for the first time, in front of everybody, right? And that's that was just a fun experience for me, and people got into it too. Zippy was freaking out in the chat about how good the art was and stuff like that.
Well, that and the HUDless, any game that can pull off HUDless and do it well, and I know you guys had some complaints about the cape and how it was hard to see sometimes, but that's one of my favorite aspects of the Dead Space series, for instance, is you don't have a HUD. The HUD is in the game. The game is the HUD. There's not
exactly.
this jarring sensation of having, I'm playing a third-person game, but I can see my bullets at the bottom left corner, because that makes sense. There's none of that in Dead Space, and that's one of the things I love about Dead Space. And you can even watch behind the scenes where they're like, we did that because it's more immersive. And it was the same thing with Origami. Sorry, sorry. It's the same thing with that, because it got me so immersed because everything is in that art style, and everything there was just enough detail to get across what it was, and not enough detail to distract away from the game itself. So I love that. Like,
I think doing things like that too, like really kind of makes you go, oh, well, this is really cool, you know, because there are so many games that do just have that normal HUD, like here's your health, and here's your bullets, or like here's how much MP you have
here's
left.
magic, or like money.
Yeah, like
soul,
here's
whatever.
your
and I
SP.
think there's certain games where that you couldn't get away with integrating the HUD, right? Like, I don't think like Call of Duty, for instance, would work if you somehow tried to get all 8 million HUD elements that it has to like integrate somehow, right?
Well, we
Like,
know
the game
Halo
has to be
doesn't
just-
work if you take away the HUD. Because considering we're playing that.
Lasso mode.
But yeah, like I feel
I
like,
can't even see the end of my rifle.
but yeah, like I feel like games like that, it just makes you, I don't know, like it kind of surprises you a little bit. Like I can remember when Rory saw that and he was like, oh, I get it. The meter is on the cape. That's really cool. Kind of makes you just think a little bit like, hey, like this was kind of
You can
neat the way
tell-
that they implemented that.
Yeah, you can tell the developers or the designers or a combination of the two like put thought into that. Like, how do we get this to be this way, and how do we get it to look pleasing while we do that? Because it wasn't just like a mana meter. Like, there was a funky ass design and everything to it. Like, it's cool.
It
Like,
was nice, and for what it's worth, I also streamed that from Morgan's. Actually, that was the first game I actually like got to.
That was
stream
when he
from
was
her
American for
stream
3
room.
weeks.
And that was
And
yeah,
this was his stream room.
yeah, that was my stream. room.
Anime girls galore.
And his like
I
work
still love that you're like, yeah, I
was, like,
recorded two
yeah.
sessions for my dissertation. Like,
And they're gonna be like, why does
Oh,
this guy have a bunch
put all
of
this stuff in the
statues?
background.
Literally, there's a presentation of me explaining my thesis topic and a presentation of me going through the midterm for my students that are in that room, all background intact, anime ladies and all.
These
I
are
didn't
guys that
know
are probably
Professor
used to
Rory
seeing
was
a
such a
Bioshock
weeb.
poster. And, like, these are people that are used to seeing a Bioshock poster in an unmade bed behind Rory.
And now they're like, oh, he must be in his workroom. What's-
What
Yeah,
are
like,
these
oh, wow,
things
how did
over
he get
here?
all
What are
those?
these?
Yeah,
What
And,
is
like,
this?
in class, I'm a bit of an unorthodox professor, I suppose, like, or instructor, because I'm not a professor yet. But like, I don't know if they knew that I was that unorthodox.
It was a shock to them too. They're like, oh.
Well, thank you, Ian. I appreciate that.
I like that joke of you having explained. No, these are my girlfriends. Like, oh, sure.
Yeah,
your
like sure, yeah, okay,
girlfriend.
yeah.
Yeah, literally. Oh, well, some people on stream, people have rolled into my stream and not even believed I had a girlfriend. Like,
I've been there. And then like
That was
Morgan's always just like, I don't know,
actually, if
it's
I
me.
can-
And then it's like, oh.
If I can just say, that actually was one of my favorite moments in Rory's stream, just because I don't know how old the guy was. I mean, he could have been just young and not been like, oh, you,
Oh, the guy
you
who
have a
doubted, he was
girlfriend,
like,
I
huh?"
remember
yeah, no,
this,
so,
actually.
like,
I think I
Yeah.
was here for
I
that
was-
one.
And
I was like,
this
what?
dude just rolled in, and you know he had been talking for a little bit, and Rory said something about he just very nonchalantly. He's like, "Oh yeah, I was doing that with my girlfriend, or I was watching that with my girlfriend."
This
or
guy
something."
was
And-
like, "You have a girlfriend?" Like multiple question marks, exclamation points.
Yeah.
This guy was a
Like,
non-believer.
Just like completely not believing. Like, there's no
Like, yeah.
way. You're
Yeah,
a
at
dude
one
on
point.
Twitch. You can't have a girlfriend.
"Yeah." At one point, he even said, "Haha, yeah, right," and I was there, and I just literally went, "It me."
yeah, like,
He didn't believe it.
yeah, and he still
like,
chose not to believe it. And I was like,
He's
bro,
like-
I was like, you, how you not gonna believe?
it's also a very like if you wanted to know if I had a girlfriend, it would be the easiest thing to find in the world because
Oh, I made
like
this joke earlier.
yeah, like literally, yeah.
Rory was telling us a couple of I'll call them war stories. I won't go into them, but my response to one of them was like, "What's funny about that to be about this? Basically, a person not believing that they were dating was that like you only need to spend about 5 minutes in either Morgan's or Rory's stream, and you know."
I'd say even less. I'd say 2 minutes tops.
Or
Well,
you-
that was like
unless
that was
you're
like 6
AJ.
months ago, Trev. They've mellowed out a little bit.
Because
6 months
AJ
ago it was 2
didn't
minutes.
know
Now it's up
for
to
like
5.
a month. AJ was just like playing with us, and he was like one day, I was like, "Wait, are you guys dating?" And he was like, "Yeah, dude. Like, where have you been?"
Yeah, poor AJ. Yeah, he was like 2 months late to the news.
He's like, "Oh, that's so cute. I love that." And then 2 minutes later, he's like, "Okay, I'm over it."
yeah, he's like, I'm sick of it now. Oh god.
So with the HUD thing, I wanted to bring up that I think it's nice that a lot of devs are actually implementing ways to turn off HUDs. Because like before, it was just like the HUD was there, you had to live with it. And now, like, every game that comes out, or most every game, kind of like Master Volume, Borderless Window, and like all those other settings, it's like, this is a staple and you have to have this. Well, you don't have to, but if you don't, the people will be like, that's weird, why don't they include this?
The thing that bothers me the most about video games today that is, it's in most games, it's not in all of them, and some games force a particular setting for this that is just, god damn it, why? But field of view. I really think every game should have a field of view slider, because we're at the point now where there's a good portion of people that game on 4K, there's a good portion of people that game on 2K, and there's still a pretty significant portion of people that game on 1080p. So if you think about that, a lot of times when you step up to the higher resolution, you want to have a little bit more field of view,
Well,
and some games don't do that.
240 people don't exist?
What?
Are you saying that 240p people don't exist?
Well, 240p people are still playing Doom on floppy disks, so they can go to hell, in my opinion. No, I'm kidding. But like that. My point is like the field of view, especially when you get a game that's built for like a 65 or 70 field of view, which is just awful, by the way. You get a game built for that, and you put it on a 2K monitor or you put it on a 4K monitor, and it's just like, excuse, like you just it's
especially
so
for me. Especially for me, as
weird,
someone who's struggling
like-
with motion sickness, like bad field of view settings and bad visual settings are terrible.
Oh, was
That was
me
Morgan every
binding a
time she
girl
saw
enough to wake you
Voldo.
up, Kitty? Yes, that's me, Morgan.
Someone else, do we have any other that you saved?
I think we actually covered most of them. Like just by continuing to talk. So that's all I've got.
So does anyone in chat have any last minute questions or concerns?
I mean, I got a few we didn't
comments?
get to. But
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I didn't.
We don't have to do that by any means. We've been going for the whole time now. So,
Did you have a finisher question?
not really, but I do have one that I could maybe adapt into it. Okay. I got two. I got two real quick ones for you. All right.
Far away.
As a person who is going into tech as a degree and as a eventual career and all that, right? How many of your relatives ask you for help setting things up or fixing things?
A few. For what it's worth, I come from a family of scientists.
Okay, so they could generally figure it out themselves.
My
This is
father
what
was
I
a
did that.
programmer and network analyst for his. He was a network analyst for most of his career. One uncle's a mathematician, another is a internal medicine specialist. Cousins, mathematicians, software engineers. I generally don't have to worry about that sort of thing. Occasionally, I'll set something up for my mom or something, but I actually have gotten kind of. Let's put it this way: I have friends who are programmers who do it way more than I do. Like whose
Yep,
families are just
yep.
constantly. You got cousins asking them for questions, and
I got lucky because my brother is also in IT, so everyone asks him since he's older.
that'll
No,
do
sorry,
it.
go ahead.
No, I was agreeing with what you say because that would definitely will happen for people. Yeah.
All right, and then I have one final question, which also leads me into a follow-up question. But I'm gonna take away your cop-out answer. Other than Morgan, who are some of your favorite streamers to watch on Twitch?
Okay, it's a good question.
Just name all the true variety people.
So, yes, everyone here, of course. The Melly was the second streamer I ever
I like
found. on
Morgan's
Twitch.
response. Just
Like, I found Melly about a month or two after I found Tiff, and I was like, I was talking to Zippy about this today. I was exclusively watching Tiff and Melly. I didn't watch any other streamers. Those were my streamers,
My
and
goodness.
I didn't want to miss a single stream if I could avoid it. Melly was tricky because we're on a different time zone, and
I did that with
because
Ash.
Melly doesn't have a fixed
to
schedule.
make you feel better back in the day.
My those are definitely are still my many of my favorite streamers to watch. And Trev, when he streams, I'm often playing with Trev when he
Yeah,
streams.
usually
as it
you're
would turn
there.
out. If it's Overwatch or a fighting game,
Whether
But,
you know about it
like,
or not.
this answer is like, I think honestly, like, and I've seen some of the more like the top streamers and whatnot. Like I've now since gone to watch a bunch of different Twitch channels. I don't think there's a Twitch streamer better than Ash.
On Tim's request.
Like, I don't think there's a single one. And I'll take this opportunity to tell something I told Zippy today. This is a story I told Zippy, which like blew my mind. As like I don't know if Ash would remember this if she was here, but I bet she wouldn't. But I have never forgotten this. When I was first starting streaming, you know, I'd been around a couple different chats. I'd been to Ash's chat a couple times, you know, but we didn't know each other well. You know, we hadn't played games together or anything like that. And we'd certainly, this was long before we ever hung out in person, but I raided Ash. She was playing the opening levels of Borderlands 2, which is one of my favorite games. And I, like, before you raid someone, you have a sense of what the reaction's going to be. And what I predicted was that Ash was going to look over and say, "Thank you, Octopus, for the raid. Guys, go watch Octopus. He was playing whatever it says that I was playing." You know? Like the standard thing when someone you don't really know raids you. And when I raided Ash, she looked over at the chat and she said, "Guys, go follow Rory. He's a really nice guy. He's good friends with Tiff." And I was like, what the fuck? Like, how do you know? I had no sense that she knew that information or remembered that information, but she did. Like, she has such a good sense of her community. She like knows so much about the things happening around her, and
I don't want to take credit for that, but I think I was part of that.
And I assumed that part of the reason she knew who I was because of you and Tiff, yeah. But like the fact that she remembered it in that moment and like just on a whim was able to do it left a real impression on me. And I think that she's the best streamer at keeping a great community out there. There is no one who is better at administering their own community and delegating the correct responsibility to mods and like so like. I guess what I'm saying is Ash, in my opinion, is the best streamer, like that I've ever gotten a chance to see. So that's a collection of my favorite streamers.
And actually, like that kind of goes into what Tater was saying too, because or what his question, because he did have another question about that, which I actually thought was a really good question, which was, wait, I got to get back up here to find it. Okay, wait a minute.
Was it how important is Persona's community?
Yeah, there it is. Okay, I thought it was further up. Yeah, because like I've thought that before, and Rory and I have talked about it before about how Ash's like. I'll be honest, like I've had so many times where I want to gift a sub, and like I'll look through, and because I like to gift subs to the people that usually are in the chat at the time because I think it's nicer. But like.
I like to give subs to people that I know have been there a little bit too.
Yeah.
Like, I rarely give subs, I'll be honest. It's just not something I really do, but I'm with you on like when I rarely do, I would rather it be someone I know is going to get benefit out of it because they actually are there.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
But like everybody like who's there, like they've already subbed to her. And like and I think that's like really interesting because like so many people like already want to sub to her, so it's already kind of difficult to like to give subs there, and like that just shows like how wonderful like of a person she already is, and I love it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I think
but
the
going
coolest
on
thing,
to
though,
like
is,
what
the
Tater
quality
said,
of...
like
sorry, go ahead.
Well, I just think she had a really good question because like she said how important is streamers community and how they act to you staying in a person's stream, and yeah, like I definitely want to know your opinion on it because I think that's a really good question. Because
for me,
I've been in people's before that I'm like, this community kind of makes me uncomfortable at times, you know?
I've had communities that made me uncomfortable. I've had communities that directly came after me, which is interesting and weird. And
I had that happen a couple times myself, actually.
That's never happened to me. I'm usually coming.
It wasn't a lesson I learned from radio, but like I say, if someone sticks a microphone in front of your face for 6 years, you just like learn some things. And I think just like one of the things I learned, because those are also formative years of your life, you know, 18 to 24, like you learn a lot, you change a lot. And like, if I don't feel welcome in your community and I feel uncomfortable, I'm not going to stick around. I don't like to feel an obligation. You know what I mean? I'm like, I'm just going to go to one of the other places where I feel abundantly comfortable.
Yeah, where I feel like I'm a friend to the person who's entertaining me, as opposed to, you know,
There's
just
that,
somebody
there's
who's
that
on the screen,
meme
like-
about like entering new channels, and it's like somebody putting their like foot extended all the way out to touch the water, and it's just like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
a lot of people when they go into the channel they don't really know.
That's
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
And I mean, I played on Tiff's stream basically right away. And so people just got used to me, I think, you know? And so in this community, I will say I've always found a great welcome.
Yeah.
And you know,
to be fair, I knew we were gonna be friends because when we were talking, I was like, "Oh, did you play too?" And I was like, "No, I didn't have time for that negativity." Like,
we both hate DMC too. It's perfect. And so like, and I think seeing like people would see me play with Tiff and Trev, and they'd be like, they treat him well, so we treat him well, kind of thing. I think how a streamer and their mods treat a person like sets a tone and a standard.
because
You
the
know?
community is kind of like a
Well, this-
extension of the
this
person.
circles-
So
This circles to what I was going to say on it, which was when you were talking about Ash, like one of the things I think that's greatest about Ash as a streamer is that because of the attitude she keeps, because of the mods she keeps around, and the actions that those mods take or don't take, right?
Mhm.
Ash has a lot of extremely high quality community members. And
Yeah.
they run the gamut from people that are just there to lurk, people that are there to hang out and chat, to people who watch everybody else on the stream team and play games with them. Like it's the whole spectrum of community members, and they're all awesome. Like they're all cool people. Like I see them in your guys' streams all the time. I see them in Ash's stream all the time. I see them around Twitch on just random streams all the time. And the cool thing is like I know anytime I see Trinsic, it's like, hey, I know that guy. I can say hi to him, and he'll know who
Yeah.
I am. You know, like it doesn't matter that we're in some random Tarkov stream or whatever that neither of us have ever been in before. It's like I know that guy.
this is like a
And,
real,
and
a real.
I
ass
even lose
community.
track of who the
It's
mods
like-
are sometimes because so many people are like eager to greet you when you roll into her
Yeah.
chat. Like
Yeah,
everybody,
no, that's the other thing.
right?
Sometimes I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, I've
don't-
been here for 5 minutes saying hello to people. I love you all, but Jesus.
Like that's a
So,
great
tip, guys,
great
if,
thing.
If I don't greet
And,
you in
like-
It's a
chat,
great
that
feeling,
means I
yeah.
don't care for you.
The and like people aren't gonna like, so if I roll into Ash's chat and she's like, hey Rory, like looking forward to hanging out again sometime when the coronavirus stops being existing, it's like people are gonna be like, oh, okay, they know each other, you know, this is like, you know, and Ash sets a standard of like, you know, don't be rude to her friends.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
good.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought that was a really good question.
I agree.
So
Because I have been in channels before where I have thought like this is a really cool person, but sometimes the chat just makes me kind of uncomfortable. And even though like the streamer is fine and they're cool and all, like sometimes they don't do a whole lot about it. They just kind of let like the behavior go on, I guess. And it's kind of made me be like, I mean, I don't really want to come back here at times.
Yeah.
So like, I just thought it was an interesting question because I felt the same kind of way.
I know that went down for Melissa like that. She didn't want to come back for some unknown reason.
But yeah, absolutely. Tater usually asks like the best questions on here. Honestly, like she does that pretty often.
Full of good
how
ideas.
many?
Good job.
She's done so many. I just kind of realized that. Wait a minute.
So Rory, do you want my like,
No, honest to God,
kind of-
she's kind of done quite a few of the really good questions throughout this entire thing. I
Do you
just kind of
want my,
realized
like,
that.
Surprised
kind of troll question?
Well, I mean, usually she does. So. Troll
She's full
questions.
of good ideas.
Yeah. Well, no, this one's
That's
for
usually
Rory.
how it
It's, just, it's like a slight troll question.
Oh boy.
Okay, far
So,
away.
Rory, how come it is like you like suggesting games I'm not gonna enjoy?
I
Is this like Bayonetta again?
Yes.
for years I've prided myself on being good at recommendations. I'm very careful about TV recommendations to my friends. And so when I think about a game for Trev, I really put a lot of thought into it. And without fail, he hates them all. Every single one of them. And now, Persona 5, a game we all looked at and were like, Trev wouldn't
Trev will
like this. He
hate
hates
this.
He would
everything
never
about
play
this.
this.
And he loves it. He hasn't stopped playing it. Like, it's just like a non-stop thing. And so, like, I've determined that I don't know how to recommend things for Trev. So next time I'm just going to get out like a fucking like a bingo machine or something, and just have a list of like 100 possible like games, and we're just gonna randomize it.
But they're
I
all
just
going to
wanna
be
point
Nintendo
out-
games.
I just want to point out, and I know that this might be skewed because you just have your Discord status set to Persona 5, but like you were awake at like 1:30 a.m. last night, and I know this because I DM'd you and you replied to me, and I was like, "You're never up this late. You're playing Persona."
I was actually not. I was actually watching a movie.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Great SpongeBob
I stand
reference.
corrected.
But
then,
before
my
that, I
assumption
was
that you were up
before
late.
that I was actually playing Persona. So
Nice.
So you got to the casino,
Yes.
right? That's where you are now. Oh my goodness.
I have to
So how
like
many-
I have to build money or coins or whatever to talk to the dude.
He was watching the P5 anime.
Yeah, let me know when you get to the.
ass game?
The next fellas.
Yeah, let me know when you get to the next one.
I'm assuming
It's
this
my
is when
least
it catches
favorite
up with the story because it's like in the intro. Obviously, you like fall and then you get caught outside the casino. So I'm assuming this is where it all catches up.
Trev doesn't watch anime.
One of my very first conversations with Trev it was we were playing The Division together, and he said he was like, "Oh, whatever, like this person's just a weeb. They like this." I was like, "You've made 5 Digimon references in the last hour," and he's like, "Digimon's not weeb. Come on."
Oh, that's too good.
Oh my god. If it has an anime, then it's weeb. So-
Oh, see, I view Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Digimon as cartoons growing up because they came on Cartoon Network. I think of I think of animes and like weeb shit like Full Metal Alchemist and stuff like that doesn't air like Death Note and like I don't know what. There's another one like food.
Doesn't
something.
air? What do you mean doesn't air? Full Metal Alchemist was on.
Well, look, I never
Toonami.
watched them. Right? If they were on like Adult Swim, I never fucking
Toonami,
watched
the
them.
good old days.
Canada, we didn't have Toonami.
Oh my god.
That's because you guys had all the cool shows already.
had-
anyway.
you had
like
Beasties
half
too,
of
to be
Toonami's
fair.
shows were us jacking off Canada's shows list. Like Toonami is where I watch Reboot, for instance. Like
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Like Toonami, literally like half of Toonami's programming was like, hey, we're gonna take all the action cartoons that Canada is making, and we're just gonna bring them across state lines.
Oh my god.
I'm not kidding.
See, you got the best of Canadian TV. You didn't get the Canadian TV that's like, we gave this guy a plaid shirt and 35 minutes to say whatever he wanted.
My
Was
god.
that guy also a what is the term you guys use? The guy who was like, why do you think they got 2 gyms?
Oh god. Oh
Skeets?
yeah.
Yeah.
The,
I forgot,
For those
I
who don't know,
couldn't-
the word skeet means something very different in Canada. It does not mean what it means in America. The is that Benji?
Yes.
Oh
Do you guys want to see Benji?
yes.
Ben.
I want to see Benji. I miss Benji.
Benny boy.
Oh, I was gonna bring this up.
We already had Quasar steal the show for like 5 minutes. Let's get Benji in here too.
I was gonna bring up this a while ago when we were talking about. Rory brought up the thing about Borderlands and how that game did it, and like everyone tried copying them.
Oh, I hear his little whimper.
He groans all the time. Everything you do, he groans. If you move, he groans.
He's got the old man groan. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like our
He is an old guy. He's actually probably like 10 or 11 now.
our Yorkie developed that when he got to be about 6 or 7 years old. He started making the old man moans, like no matter what. You would be petting him, he'd be not moving or anything. He'd just like, I'm petting you, Chaz.
But Rory was saying that like he liked Borderlands because it was like the one thing to do that kind of like style and like gameplay or those aspects. And I thought that was like that's kind of like when Pulp Fiction came out and like everyone tried doing movies that style after they saw that, and I was just like, oh.
Yeah. Guy Ritchie movies are the same thing, where now every time a new character gets introduced in a movie, there's like a title card for the character and a big, quick prequel cinematic for what they were just doing or what they ate for breakfast or some shit. And it's like, okay, not every character walking into a room needs a big elaborate introduction. Like,
So if you guys have any more last minute questions, now is the time to ask them. And then Rory, is there anyone on that you would like us to host or raid?
So, I think they're on. Are they on?
I don't know. I don't know who you're talking about.
Who are you? Who are
I'm-
you talking?
JFO?
I'm talking about I'm not
Or
following
JOF?
this channel, but I know of them, and they're in our DM.
Okay, so it's one of the two. So it's JOF?
Yes, but in the other order where it's
They
JF.
are on. Yes.
Or yeah,
on.
JFO.
I want to rate.
Okay.
I want to raid them so I
Yes.
can follow them because I'm embarrassed I'm not following them already.
They are still
They-
on. Yes.
Roy, who's the 23rd president of the U.S.? I have no
He's Canadian.
idea.
If you asked him who the 23rd Prime Minister was, you'd have a better...
I'd still get it wrong.
But he would know more Prime Ministers than he would presidents, I assume.
Roy, what newer stealth games are good for Thief fans? The last one I really liked was Dishonored. Honestly, I think Dishonored is the closest we've gotten, Travis. I really wish I had a better answer for you that like had the immersive sim style and the stealth style, but
Well,
only-
there's that
Also-
one game we saw a trailer for, Ghost Runner or whatever. That looks very Dishonor-esque and like stealth game based.
that'll be interesting to see. Actually, that game might be too fast for me. I'll see how my motion sickness goes.
Also, the 23rd president of the U.S. was Benjamin Harrison.
Nice, well done. I've never
Who
heard
the
of
hell is
that gentleman.
Harrison?
Apparently, Trev's never heard of him either. That'll feel so bad.
I know, like
There's quite a few people.
I know the big
Honest
name
to God,
ones, like Lincoln.
there are a
and
lot of
Washington
presidents
and
that people have
Franklin,
never
all
heard
those
of.
people.
There's one that actually died like within 3 months of his
Yeah,
presidency.
he had the
because
shortest
didn't-
term or whatever.
Wasn't
He
it
didn't wear a
30
coat?
Days? Wasn't it
Yeah,
like
he-
30 days?
He didn't wear a coat during his inauguration, and he got, I believe it was like something like
common cold?
pneumonia.
Oh,
And
Yeah,
then
he got
died.
like a
Wasn't
serious
it
illness
William
and
Henry?
died.
It wasn't it William Henry Harrison?
Who died
yeah,
in a month?
Yeah,
Might
Tony's
have
got it.
been.
Yeah.
I think
In
it was
fairness,
William
to answer
Henry.
your question, I like open world games, but it bothers me that so many open world games are just sparsely populated, like long distance spaces of nothing with a control tower to take over.
There's
I like,
a
but I like
great-
some of them.
There's
That's
a great
like every Far
reviewer
Cry
out
game
there known
Yes,
as
there's
Yahtzee
Typhoid.
who puts out
Yeah.
the series Zero Punctuation, and to
And pneumonia.
illustrate Rory's point, I love his wrap up on his Fallout 3
know.
review, which is basically, look, Fallout 3 is like Branston pickle, but it's being spread on a piece of bread super thin, and like so all of the little chunky bits of your Branston pickle are like few and far between on the bread, but it's still Branston pickle, so it's delicious. Like that's his review of
Yeah.
Fallout 3. Like that's what it breaks down to at the end of the review is like, yes, they're great, but they're spread across this entire barren wasteland of nothing to do. Like and I think that is a problem that open world games have. They don't feel lived in because there's nothing to do.
That's the huge issue with like Bethesda games, because like Skyrim is just like, oh, cut, paste, cut, paste, cut, paste, and that's your land.
Yep.
All right, so I think I split that right.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
it, right?
Just fans of yes.
Okay.
I
I
certainly
thought
hope so.
they had a
Mellow-
wolf.
Mellow is so just fans of is a team of streamers, and Mellow is the one streaming tonight.
Yes.
Just to
Cool.
clarify.
And the person
We
you
don't show them love.
you may know over there is Richard A. Smasher. That's the one we know from Ash's community, and he's one of the personalities on that channel.
Can I just say before we clue it up, thank you so much to everyone who asked questions, to everyone here on the stream who asked questions, and everyone in the chat.
And
Zippy, you
Thank
were
you, Zippy, for
incredibly
coming in
prepared.
for.
And
Oh,
I'm
yes,
very
yes.
impressed.
Zippy,
Good
great.
as. Yeah, that is.
Does
our
he play
big call.
Smash? I think they've played Smash before. I'm not entirely sure. They
I've
play a bunch
played
of stuff.
Smash.
I know, yeah, Zippy.
No,
has.
I'm not, Ian.
All right, so thank you guys for coming by. We'll be back
Yeah.
next Wednesday with whatever.
With Didius, very excited.
Yes, that is. with what's his face? Yeah.
Thank you.
Night, everybody.
All right. Good
Take it
night.
easy.
Good night,
See ya.
guys.